Well, hopefully that did the trick there. It's going to be about 30 seconds, and then I should come back up. And let me know if you guys hear me. Any sound now? It says there's sound. Hopefully there is. Can you guys hear me? Should take just a few seconds. All right, good. I got a thumbs up from Ian Adams. Excellent. Thanks, guys. Woo! For some reason, I don't know if the driver just quit or what. I had to completely restart software. It's a long, boring story. You guys don't want to hear it. Okay. Well, let me say hello to everybody since that was an odd 5 minutes there. Earth is seriously flat. What's going on? Hector Ram, RH, SE Montreal, Allie B, Grave Dodger, SE Montreal, Rachy, Page 42, Jimbo, Blue Miller, Matrix Media, YouTube, Brian Shakur, Ian Matterson, Colin Dresser, and Enigma Planet X. And I think that's it. If I missed you, I apologize. I did it before, and I swear it was a lot better the first time. All right. Oh, YouTube's written it out for me. I should have just waited. That is a great idea, YouTube. That'd make it a lot easier. Anyway, so it is, just in case anybody's wondering what the date is, Friday, November 6th, 2020. I'm Brandon Toy, host of the Ranty with Brandon show. And this is show number 23, cruising right along. We have got some people in the Discord. I think we'll go there shortly. I am going to spam and get that out of the way. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. It is Brandon Toy on YouTube. And I'll give you the channel name here real quick. There you go. Head on over if you haven't subscribed. Check it out. If you want to support the show, best way to do it, at least for me, is through Streamlabs. Should be easy, although there have been reports that it's more difficult than I've sold it as. Anyway, there's that. And don't forget to go get your Ranty panties on Ranty's Pantry. I seriously think he should add some panties to it. So there, I got all the shilling done in one fell swoop. And now we can go talk to some real people and see what's going on in the on the flat Earth. What's up, guys?
Hello, what-ho?
What's going on, Travis? Jimbo, what's going on?
Not too bad, eh?
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, Jimbo. Hey, Jimbo, you're lighting up. You might be having audio issues. But hey, Travis, what are you doing, man? You sound a little far away from the microphone or something.
Yeah, I'm back home off the road. I've got my Bluetooth speaker on, so it might be a little bit different than just going with my phone.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, we
Oh,
have
great.
What?
Here. Hello, Carlos.
Carlos. Hey, what's up, Carlos?
What is up, my dudes?
Nothing much, man. It's Friday.
It's Friday somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's also Saturday somewhere, I suppose. So what's...
That's so relative.
Yeah, right. So what's new, guys? Anything major going on in the flat Earth world over the last 48 hours? I have to admit I've been a little preoccupied with the disaster that's taken place.
Well, I can't report from the flat Earth, but from the globe Earth, I can.
Okay, well, what's going on the globe Earth, Carlos?
A lot of uncertainty, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
Regardless of which side you look at it, it's crazy.
It is crazy, and I haven't talked about it too much here because, we don't really talk politics, but the way I see politics is like it's a WWF wrestling show for adults, essentially. I mean, either way,
well,
whoever wins, we're kind of in the same situation. They seem like they do the same thing except for a couple things here and there. So it really doesn't matter, but what do you think?
Well, I guess like you said, whichever wins is still going to be politics. But I'm not going to say that it's rigged. But like wrestling, But
Yeah, no,
like I said,
I
at the
get
end
you.
of the day, the outcome is the same. It sucks. It's nobody can be. You can't please everybody at the same time.
No, no. The only thing that sucks is for the last 4 years, people were screaming about how Trump was illegitimate, and there was just no faith in national politics whatsoever in the country. And we had all these riots, and that's all we heard about in the media. And now it's like either way it goes, the same thing's going to happen. Half the country's going to see the election as illegitimate, and it's like, are our elections starting to become a complete joke, considered a complete joke by everybody? The only thing I'm worried about is the psychology of the country, but maybe it's a good thing, man. Maybe it'll wake people up. I don't know.
Well, sometimes the prodigal has to hit rock bottom to come back to the father. So it sucks.
Yeah.
But say once in a while you got to eat out of the pig's plate.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway. All right. So what's going Jimbo, you back yet? No? All right. So what's going on in your world, Travis? You're off the road. That's cool.
Nothing too exciting. Just rolling in and getting some dinner ready. Was enjoying the show on Jose's when Brian was taking the ballers to task on their model with the rotation of the zodiac.
Okay.
Is my audio
Hey.
back? Mic test?
Yeah, you're
Here,
back now,
I'll
Jimbo.
do the hunk for Travis.
Oh, there we go.
Thanks, Carlos. Please don't ever do that again.
Roadrunner.
Oh, shoot.
Well, I'm ready to make a bold statement, and again, I think it's that important that I'm not going to stop if it takes a year to get it through people. But vapor pressure is the atmospheric pressure that causes barometers to go up, that causes all these changes in our visual perceptions of what's going on during daylight when we're visualizing things. What we call, barometric pressure measures the amount of water vapor in the air.
Ah.
And there's lots of links under gas pressure now. I'd be thrilled, Brandon,
Yeah.
if you just clicked on them and showed a few where it says P equals, vapor pressure in these containers and stuff. Real fun stuff.
Well, I don't know if anybody's real interested in water vapor, Jimbo.
Yeah.
I'm just
How
joking.
about oh, fuck yeah, because my nerves are fucking fried. Sorry about that, but but if you want, you don't have to.
No,
We
I do.
We can wag the dog for fucking ever on these things and never get past the fucking glober and there's a gradient to space.
Uh-huh.
Well, if at minus 40 on the ground is the same as minus 40 at 100,000 feet for the vapor pressure, then that's the fucking gradient right there.
All right.
That closes down that fucking argument. So it's important.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Let me see if I can find one. I see a bunch of links out there, Jimbo. Is there a certain one that you want me to start with? I mean, this is good a topic as any, so.
Yeah, if you pop it up and start sharing it, the one that has basically the formula P equals vapor pressure would be a good one. Just a graphic with the YouTube in it there, or the U-shaped, mercury device.
U-shaped
To
mercury
quote SpongeBob, I'm gonna head out.
You leaving? All right. See you, Carlos.
Well, I'll come back when Jimbo is done with that presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, go fuck yourself in the meantime. I don't mind.
Love you, Jimbo. God bless you.
Me too. Go fuck yourself. I'm busy.
God bless you.
Oh boy. All right. So I think this is the one you wanted. Is it measuring gas pressure and atmospheric pressure?
I can't.
Oh, I gotta share my screen, don't I?
Can't see what you're seeing.
Oh. Let me do that then. Okay. All right. All right. You should be able to see it now. Yeah? Yeah, it's showing. Can you see it, Jimbo? Uh-oh. You lose audio again, Jimbo?
Yeah, I'm not seeing exactly what you're seeing. I'm seeing a buddy with his hands clasped in front of him. Can you
Yeah,
go to the
a
still
guy in a
pics?
red shirt. Isn't that what?
Yeah, I don't want that fucking shit. There's some still pics
Okay,
in there.
hold on. We'll
Bunch of stills.
Yep. Okay, so you tell me.
I can't see what you're seeing. I don't know how you do
You can't see
presentations.
that either? Shit.
Nothing changing for me. Gee.
Okay, hold on. Let me see here. This is not going well so far. All right. There we go. See it now?
There we go. Now I see what you're seeing, and it's changed. The one with the brownish and blue and the flask there.
This one?
Yeah, I think yeah, that one. Let's take a look at that.
All right. Let me open it so
Now-
it's bigger. There we go. Go ahead. All yours.
Now, this represents basically our environment in one way or another, but see the formula over there at the third flask? P equals equilibrium of vapor pressure. In a
Yes.
container, it's the vapor that creates the pressure. Now we can go to another one, the one below it.
Okay. Let me get back there. All right. So wait a minute. Let me try to soak this in here. P equals equilibrium vapor pressure. Okay. That's the only part of that we need to notice?
Yeah, that formula where it's right there in black and white that says P equals vapor pressure.
Okay.
Now the next one,
Yep.
this represents whether it's our whole environment up to the dome or just this vessel represented here in this thing. When the water is at equilibrium, i.e. no evaporation and things are balanced, note the level of the mercury in the tube.
This is the mercury here in gray, I take it.
Yes. Now, as the liquid water evaporates and forms a gas, the vapor, puts pressure on the surface of the mercury, pushing it up the column.
Okay.
Vapor pressure is responsible for what we call atmospheric pressure. Because the oxygen and nitrogen, if there was no water at all or vapor in the air of this device, you could heat it up over 100 degrees, there'd be really no change in the pressure. In fact, if you have no water at all, just dry air at standard pressure, seal it in a vessel and heat it, the vessel will melt before it'll blow up if there's no water in it or no vapors to expand.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, here again, like all containers with liquids or fluids, it's the vapor that puts pressure on the bottles, on the lids, where you hear a little poof when you open your soda or whatever.
Sure.
Basically the same thing. But in this, again, water in the form of vapor and the temperature. Wow, what a difference the temperature makes on this vapor in the air. It's incredible. It's huge.
All right.
But that's enough for this one. Again, the important thing is the air pressure is caused by the water vapor and the temperature of the air. Both in
Gotcha.
combination.
Gotcha.
Okay?
All right. Which one next? This one?
You could, but the one below, the so-called sugar hydrometer there.
All right. This one?
Yep.
Okay.
That's just another little device that, in the same way as a barometer can measure air pressure or the vapor pressure in water,
Yep.
the force of the water bearing down on a surface. Okay? This is the same thing, but made without the poisonous freaking mercury.
Bearing
This one's
down
made of
on the
sugar and
surface.
water.
So what is
Yeah.
out here? This is the outside atmosphere out here?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And
Our
depending
air.
on the pressure, it'll push this water up here?
Yeah. The force exerted by the vapor pressure on the surface of the water is the hydrostatic pressure exerted pushing the column of water up or down.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
So that's why you got the hydrostatics there.
Okay. That's it for that one. All right. Which one next? This one?
Yeah, same basic idea there. We don't really have to cover it. Vapor pressure, it's determined by,
Oh, same
pressure
thing
in
as
the
that other one.
system.
Okay.
Yeah, determined by. That's how we deliver packages in Canada, unfortunately. Now, I think you can play the true vapor pressure. I used to play tons of them. It's a public domain, but it does state really truly at the very end too some important things in the definition. You know, Eh, we're getting into the realm of the confusion of Coriolis with this property of pressure and vapor, because they want to attribute both gravity and the R value to the center of the Earth to it. But we'll go beyond that and ignore it for now. But if you can play the whole true vapor pressure so people see it at least once and it's recorded, we can sit through that. It won't get you a copy strike. And it's
Yeah.
only a few seconds long.
I'm a little worried because this is a big channel.
Okay, just post the link in the main chat so people can maybe on the YouTube.
Yeah,
And we'll
yeah.
skip this one.
You can take a look at this on
I shall
your
say
own
hello.
time. There you go. Links in there. Okay.
And further down, there's one other link that we can actually go to. It's just a vapor pressure calculator for dew points and other stuff. It's a rather simplified one because if you do go into looking into more of that shit, you'll find it just gets fucked up. Maybe it's at the top.
Oh yeah, you had a bunch of
Hold
links
on,
up
slow
here.
down. Yeah, up there. Up higher, and the one with the vapor pressure and memocom is the one I wanted to use. Up two more.
Up two more.
One and that one.
Okay. Okay. There you go.
This one's pretty simple, and it does a few basic things that you might need. There are far more complicated ones, and like I say, the dew point, which is water vapor precipitating out in the morning, usually got a whole science to it and babble to it and all this. So I don't want to go much farther in that. But I think the important thing to stress is what we call air pressure is the vapor pressure of the water and the force it exerts, because the oxygen and nitrogen do not expand and contract in our range of temperatures that we live in like the water vapor does. So
you're saying that when we talk about 14.7
PSI.
Yeah, PSI at sea
Yeah.
level, we're talking about vapor pressure?
Absolutely, 100%.
No shit.
Nothing else and nothing more.
So the higher we
Definitely.
go up, evidently, based on the data that I've seen.
The colder it is,
Yeah.
and the less vapor can be held by the water. And again, the temperature on the ground, the vapor pressure matches at 40,000, 50,000 feet. If it's minus 40 on the ground and you're at 100,000 feet and it's minus 40, your air pressures are identical. If it's minus 30 on the ground and minus 30 at 120,000 feet, your air pressures are identical. It ends there.
Okay. So what kind of stuff? How does this impact the shape of the Earth or this
the
conversation?
Glovers claim, and it's one of their rhetorics now, that there's a gradient towards outer space. The higher you go, the less and less pressure there is. This is the reason there's less pressure the higher you go. See, on the ground, in pascals anyway, 960 pascals of our air pressure is from the oxygen and nitrogen. The balance up to 1240 or so is the vapor pressure. That's where we have the zone of change, anywhere from 50%, 50%, you know. When the air is 50% humidity, it's pretty comfortable. When it's too dry, people can get bloody noses and stuff, just their skin dries, can crack, other stuff. When it's less than 50%, like some homes dry out, a piano, a guitar, whatever, will lose tune. You know, if it's too humid, elements in the environment take on water. At 50%, they can't take or lose water. But yeah, everything that happens around us is dependent on that vapor pressure, including our rain, our visual perspective of things, because this vapor is always going up, evaporating from surfaces, and creating convection currents. Convection currents not only go up, some of them come back down and sink. Like I say, in a boiling pot, the most heat is coming up the center of the pot, scurrying across the surface to the sides of the pot while it cools, and then back down to the bottom in a convection cycle. Well, on a bigger scale, that happens over a lake. It's all the same. But like I say, I can only, and I get tired of repeating myself and just trying to encourage people to look into this. This should be enough to have some people say, well, maybe he's got a point. Maybe it is the freaking vapor pressure. And maybe that gradient up there is because of temperature vapor relationship ratios, how they interact together. Colder, less air. And it's plottable,
So
graphable.
do you think that the entire pressure gradient is due to vapor pressure? Or is it just one of the...
Absolutely. You can find vapor pressure charts for every kind of thing, from propane gas, liquid gas, and stuff in containers to, again, the vapor pressure in the air. And all the examples you'll find of vapor pressure will be in containers. So, you know, it don't matter if it's an open-ended barometer with mercury to our open air and stuff, or a closed system with pressure from fluid inside it and a little heat and cooling. It's the same, big or small. But the same thing happens. You cool down air, it can hold less water. It desiccates. Some people call it like a dry, what do they call it? Freeze drying. We use freezing methods to totally dry out water from things, to desiccate stuff.
So you're saying that gravity really has no impact whatsoever on the pressure gradient? That it's...
Absolute zero.
Okay.
Gravity has no effect on any gas.
What about density? Does density impact this at all? Is there
At least for gases, I'm not going to yell about the use of the word density here because it applies to gases. Well, add more water to the air, it weighs more per cubic centimeter or cubic yard or whatever, right?
No, I think it weighs less the more water's in it, doesn't it?
No, the more water, the more mass, my friend.
No,
Exact
no, no.
opposite. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wetter air, heavier air. I won't argue it. You need to look it up. But I'm
Oh,
done
look
with
at
this
look at the
presentation,
H.
and
Look
the
at the
rest of my
molecule.
time now. Huh?
Just look at the molecule H2O, and what is the atomic mass of H2O,
Yeah.
and then look at like a
I
nitrogen
don't know.
molecule.
Yeah, it's I think it's 18. You know,
Look at
it's
that.
well,
All right,
14
and
to
then
16
and
maybe.
then what is N2 weigh?
What is what?
N2, nitrogen molecule.
Anyway, like I say, you all go through that yourselves. Like I
No,
say,
no,
these
You are
that's
correct,
pretty much
Brandon. You are
presentations.
correct.
You're all
This
good
guy
now.
is talking utter
You're all
drivel.
good now.
Um,
Yep. Just let troll it and
the
let
nitrogen.
it be. I'm
The
good.
nitrogen
Right.
molecule weighs more than the water molecule.
Have you ever seen a nitrogen molecule and then compared it to a water molecule to know this, or is this just something you're telling us because you believe it?
Do you ever heard of
The
a periodic
laughter,
table?
the laughter of
I like his
I love
troll
the laughter
giggling
of
there.
oh no I didn't. That's the oh no I didn't laugh. I just believe it. But I'm not going to.
Have you ever looked at a periodic
pretending
table?
to laugh.
Have you ever had chemistry?
So looking at the periodic table proves that water is made of two balls. Hydrogen ball
Scientists and
oxygen
institutions
ball.
have proved this. You're just going on your wishful thinking. You have
Okay.
no
No, they
evidence
proved it to you.
whatsoever
I'm
for your
full of
opinion.
stuff.
You're arguing against hundreds of years
Now,
of
okay,
proved and
don't
validated science. You
talk
know
about me.
nothing.
May want to know
Well,
that.
Yeah, we know.
Hey,
We know- we
can
know
I
the
interject
argument.
here real quick?
We know the
So,
argument against me.
Rumpus said something
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm
He
a
said there's
chemist, my
hundreds of
friend.
years of proven science that it's established. Can you point us to a source? I mean, there must be incontrovertible evidence out there, a picture of these molecules or something that you are basing your opinion on.
Well, you don't need a picture of a molecule to know how much it weighs. The weight, the atomic mass of water and the elements have been proved. Was established in the 1800s initially. And by the way, you were right when you said that the molecular mass of water is less than that of oxygen. This idiot who's talking about pressure only being dependent on vapor is an absolute moron. He knows nothing what he's talking about.
Well, you don't
He
need to
hasn't
do
got a
that,
single-
Rumpus.
Well, he
That's
hasn't got
not
a single
necessary,
citation.
Rumpus.
I
It's
really
not
He's just
necessary.
making stuff up. He's just making stuff up.
Okay, well,
Right. So about the citation.
why don't you tell us what you
No,
think
we'll
he's
be-
wrong and
Okay.
stop insulting him? Because this is all you do is get everybody
Look, but
excited.
he's just
insulting you,
But when
cocksucker.
someone makes something up and has no basis for it whatsoever other than their own wishful thinking and misunderstanding of
Ugh.
physics, it's just incredible. Anyway, so were you asking Brandon
Yeah,
about
right,
what
Rumpus.
evidence we have? Basically, you're asking me
We don't want
what evidence we have for the mass, the molecular mass of water and
We
other
want
things.
proof of
Right. Well, these
atoms,
have been established.
not
There are
weight.
institutions. There are millions of people who worry about these sorts of things and have validated them.
I don't
over
care
the
how many
hundreds of years.
people. Just
Trust
show me
in
the
other people.
evidence, Rumpus.
Just trust in other people, dude.
Right. So you
Yeah,
want
what
to
do we
see?
call fog? It's like a cloud. It's heavy and it comes down and it's got water.
That's not
right?
water vapor. That is
There is
suspension
water
of.
vapor in
No,
the
that's not water
just
vapor.
droplets.
That's
You're saying
droplets.
there's
Yeah.
no vapor in a cloud with fog and rain droplets, eh? You're a
There is
fucking
vapor,
moron.
but a fog and clouds are water droplets in suspension. So that's water in its liquid form. It's not water vapor. Right. So you want evidence for basically the atomic mass of molecules, Brandon. Well, I don't have an experiment to hand for you, but I mean, the fact that the periodic table show. I mean, are you denying? Do you want the proof of the atomic masses of all the elements? All the
I don't
sort of
think
90
the question was about the atomic mass of all the
If we need
evidence.
periodic table
Well, you were
again,
sure. That's
we
what
did
sure.
the
That's
same thing.
what you were asking for. Sorry. Okay, I
That's not
misunderstood the
at all
question.
question.
What was the question again?
0%. You were just distracting.
Sorry, what was the
Vapor
question
Well,
again,
I'm kind of
Vapor
lost it in all
pressure
this
exerts-
name
yeah,
calling
my-
and
my
back and forth.
Well,
But
you were asking.
I started this. Maybe I can finish it. My statement is vapor pressure is what pushes on the goddamn mercury in the fucking thing.
So does gas. Makes no difference.
It's
Yeah.
Water vapor is just a gas, you idiot.
responsible, bitch.
okay.
Oxygen has a great atomic mass and it pushes just as much as water
No,
vapor.
it
Water
doesn't. The
vapor
mixture
is
of
just simply
oxygen and
H2O
nitrogen have
as a
980
molecule and it
900
forms in
pascals
gaseous
of
form.
force
It makes
at
no difference
atmospheric
whatsoever.
pressure.
Jimbo,
And it
don't
has
let him
very
get to you.
little-
You guys are talking over
and it
each other.
has
We
very
can't
little-
hear what you're saying.
And
So
it has
just
very little
slow
effect
down.
on
So I can
refraction.
run this over you.
The
too.
diagram
We
that
just
you
did a rumpus,
showed of
so I
pushing
might
up
as well just
mercury,
keep talking
gas
over
and
you,
air will
because
do
you're
exactly the
trying
same
to
thing.
rumpus and really talk bullshit about everything. So
You-
why
you
don't
know
we
nothing
just
about
rumpus
science
you and give you
whatsoever.
some of your own medicine?
No one
Because
agrees
I
with
can
you,
talk over
Jimbo.
someone forever and ever and ever.
Jimbo,
too.
go and
Anybody
find a
can do
single
that. We like to
citation.
la, 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 la,
Come
la.
on,
Jimbo, you're not
provide a
helping.
sin-
I can do it.
Jimbo, provide a single citation in some scientific institution that supports what you're saying. You'll find none.
Why is Rumpus even
Okay, so
here?
yeah,
I'm
hold on. So
saying
this is
water
what
vapor
the,
the air
the entire
heavier.
argument
You're
now
saying it
is.
makes it lighter. What a fucking nonsense. I'm not going to
Yes.
argue with
You
that.
don't understand. You
Citation-
don't understand that H2O is a
Goodbye,
smaller atomic
Rumpus.
mass
So
than the molecular
you don't
molecular
understand. I'm a
oxygen. You don't.
fucking chemist,
don't
you
know
dumb
that.
cocksucker.
You're disputing. You think that water H2O has a higher atomic mass than an
Okay, can
oxygen
we-
molecule O2. Is that
Before
what
we
you're
go
saying?
to that, can we prove water's H2O? Because it's like we're assuming water's we're assuming water is made out of these two. That's circular logic to say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you
H2O
just
hold on, bro,
deny
I wasn't
atoms. I
nearly
mean,
there. Nearly there. I was nearly there. Let me finish. So before we can say that water is H2O, we have to demonstrate that water is H2O. Now, if you're going to say, look at the periodic table, I'm going to say that demonstrated a bunch of words on a periodic table, not that water's H2O. So default
I would say-
Right, okay, now it's my turn.
But
right now
so
it's my
we're
turn.
having, where does water
Remember,
become
we're dealing with
H2O?
a guy here. We're dealing with a guy on right the hand who denies everything
Okay,
about
so now
science.
he's
He
talking
denies-
about-
Unnecessary. You're not
You
answering the
had to
question
go.
now.
You
Now
had
you're
to
just
go.
you're
You had
just
to go.
sniping and insulting. Why don't
No,
you
I'm
just
not.
answer
I'm
the
pointing out
question?
that He denies that we can have
Okay,
knowledge
yeah, but now you're
about.
talking
Oh,
about
listen,
me
yeah,
again.
let me-
Who
yeah, hold on.
cares what he denies? Just answer the question.
Well, he's denied.
Address the
He's
point.
made his
Okay,
claim.
talking
He's
about
made
me
a
again.
claim. He's
Talking
made
Rumpus,
a
don't
claim.
ad hoc him. Answer
He's
the
made a
question.
claim.
Address
He's
the
made
point.
a
Don't
claim.
ad
He's made a
hominem.
claim, and I'm refuting his
Okay,
claim.
so yeah, so
He's
he's just
claiming
not going to answer
that we
then.
can
Now
know
he wants to
nothing.
talk
He
about
said
me.
this many times that we can know nothing about anything, basically.
Okay,
You're not
so
addressing
Basically
what
says
we
we
were
can know
talking about,
anything.
Rumpus.
He
That
Are you
wasn't the
just
denies,
gonna let him
question.
talk
denies
about me here?
yeah, but so that's so he's the only
He's not
person
going
on
to answer the
the panel.
question,
Exactly
though.
right.
He's
He's
not
the only
here for
person on the
debate.
panel who
I just
denies
showed it.
it's
Look, he's just talking about me. Just get rid of
He
him.
denies everything. He denies
Okay,
that we can have
still
any
talking
knowledge
about me.
about the real
He's
world.
talked about
He
me for the
denies
past 10 times
chemistry.
he's opened his
He
mouth.
denies
Rumpus, the
physics.
question
All
on
right.
the table
Me,
is
about me
H2O.
again,
Can
still
you prove
talking
it?
about
Well,
me.
I'll deal with it. Okay, well, I'll deal with this water thing. Right. So Jimbo is claiming. So Jimbo is claiming that water, H2O, has a greater atomic mass.
Okay, this is not.
than-
He's just dismissed. He just ignored
oh my
everything I
God.
just said,
Can
and
you
he's
stop
moving on.
interrupting?
No, yeah, we were
you
waiting
had a
because
go.
you
You had a
ignored the
go. You've been
question.
speaking much more than I
No,
have.
yeah, no, we
No,
proved
you've been
water
speaking
is
much
H2O
more than I
before
have,
we
and you've
say
been
this.
All right.
interrupting me. I didn't interrupt you.
you were
I
going to.
interrupted
We'll
you.
figure it out without you,
Right, so here we go.
Rumpus.
The claim on the
There we go. We're gonna figure it out without
Yeah,
you,
he's-
Rumpus. Just take a break.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much,
we were.
Brandon.
See, he's here to waste
Thank
time.
you.
We were
Yeah,
trying to
it's
establish that
Friday
water
night.
is
I thought we'd
H2O.
get our blood pumping a little bit, you know. All right. So, where were we?
H2O.
H2O.
Vapor is a gas.
Thank you.
Water vapor is a gas. Now, Jimbo, I wasn't trying to show you up or prove you wrong. It's just my research, what I've seen, and I haven't researched this in depth. I'm not an expert. Says that the density of the air volume decreases the more water vapor there is. So I'm trying to reconcile that with what you're saying is that the density increases. Jimbo? Do I still have audio?
Oh, sorry, I was letting it cool down.
Oh, okay.
It did.
So anyway, so density increases with humidity, which is
Yes.
the amount of water
Very much
vapor in the air, right? It decreases.
Oh, it increases. It increases the weight of the air.
Per volume or okay.
I don't understand your question, Brandon.
I guess my question is, we've got conflicting information. Jimbo is telling me that water vapor increases the density of the air per volume, right? And
That's what makes sense to me. Okay, if I'm just going to come at this being honestly with common sense, the drier the air, the clearer and farther you're going to see. The more dense the humidity or water vapor in the air, you are going to create more of a lens and obstruction through the medium. That just makes sense.
well, that I agree with
Could it
100%.
also magnify, though? Could it also magnify it in the near ground?
And it's
Okay.
always in transition. Heat
Well, hold
waves,
on.
hotter waves, all kinds of stuff. It's like, again, it sets up convection currents. Some of the hot air and water vapor evaporating up goes up higher and forms clouds. Some of it doesn't make it that high. It rolls back out and down to the coast, the other side of you where you're filming, or for them on the other side, there's airs convecting and rolling around you around the lake. They're convection currents, and they bring this turbidity, if you will, these fumes
Well-
that make things go in and out of focus. I get that at all levels, not just at water level. You know, I'm up 7 stories and I got clear sky for miles and buildings, and I get that waving effect even up high. It's still there.
Yeah,
Even, you know, I can take 3 or 4 shots in a row. One of them will be sharp and the other 2 will be blurry, kind of, because it's those changes in front of the camera in the atmosphere that are by preventing it from having a truly sharp picture every time. Less water, drier days, sharper shots.
No doubt
No,
about that. No doubt. These are two separate issues, though, that we're talking about here. One is the density by volume, which is what I was asking about, and the other is the impact or the effects that increased humidity has, which no doubt more humidity causes more impacts, as far as I know and what I've seen. Observations.
Well, where does the weight of every liter or square mile of this water evaporating go? Its weight is in the air mass now.
It is, but my understanding is that the water weighs less than the air.
That's false. No,
and it
that
expands.
is, no. If it did weigh less, the air would be in our lakes and oceans, and the water would be above us.
Okay, so let's maybe, because this is our show or Brandon's show, I mean, let's pull some stuff up and look at this, because I am siding with Jim in terms of just the common sense aspect. What the way that you just expressed it, Brandon, I would not agree with.
Well, no, it's interesting because it does go against common sense, and I agree with you. It would seem that wet air would be heavier than dry air. It really would. I mean, that makes sense. But everything I've found, all the information that's out there, says that it's the exact opposite. Now, maybe that's incorrect.
Where did you find this information, and when did you find it? Like 2 minutes ago, on a Google search?
No, I've researched it a couple times. In fact, I was just talking with arguing with Bob the science guy.
I'll Google some air maps
well, there's
and try
your
to
problem.
find where it actually states.
No, it's not. It wasn't.
That the wet air is actually heavier than dry air. But I'll try to find it and post it, and then we can move on from there, because this shouldn't be an issue. That weight of the water has to be translated somewhere. Where is it?
Well, it takes up a greater
You can't
volume.
add
That's
more
my
weight
understanding.
and wind up lighter. That don't make sense. But let me look it up and see if I can find something citable about adding water to air and its mass becomes greater. Okay? Give me a few minutes.
Okay. All right. You know, I'm not even sure how important this is to the question, but it's interesting that you guys have this understanding and they're saying something different. That's all I'm pointing out.
Yeah, but see, that's no different than what we've come across with any other, like, take horizontal.
Yeah, right.
They have to create a reference with the center of the earth. But if we
Is
talk
horizontal a straight line?
yeah, but if we, right. So if we come at it from a common sense description of what we see visually, perpendicular, parallel, and right angles, we're just dealing with what's on the surface of the ground, and we can describe that. We can draw two plumb lines a half a mile apart, both 5 feet high, and we can logically deduce that both of those tips of those posts are level. They're horizontal.
You're going to make Bev show up, Travis. You're going to make Bev show up.
Yeah,
Listen, you just don't understand.
Well, no, I mean, no doubt. I mean, we disagree with them on just about everything.
So that's all I'm saying is that, of course, their definitions of the elements are going to reflect what they think is happening. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you and I are just hitting this at ground, hit the ground running. We're going to come out and we're going to describe what we see. So we see less on certain days. We've taken the barometric pressures, yada, yada, yada. And we think that we draw the conclusion that means that there's more moisture in the air. But there's something about their model where they have to flip that on its head. Now, I don't know what that is, but I've seen it done before. With let's say, for instance, okay, I've said this on my channel numerous times. When we're looking out over distance and we see an inferior mirage, we see an inverted image. You know what they do? they invert the temperature gradient. Show me where you measured that. Show me where you went out and tested and eliminated any alternative. They don't do it. They just take what they think is happening and then not only describe it with words, but then they translate that into a mathematical expression. And then the mathematical expression becomes inerrant. You can't argue with math. So that's all I'm saying.
Well, no doubt. But now I'm wondering, what evidence do they have to back this up? Because it seemed like such a benign thing. I never really thought to question whether this is correct or not. I mean, it goes against common sense, but yeah, maybe this is totally incorrect what they're telling us about water vapor. We need to see some kind of what did they base this on?
What, the density of water?
Well, that no, that humid air weighs less than dry air.
Well, when you replace, just say you've got a nitrogen molecule, which is N2, and that molecule is replaced in the same volume with a water molecule, which is H2O, you actually decrease the density of that volume.
Yeah, but have you ever been in a sauna before, right? Or it's really humid and there's
you've got actually moisture condensate, but per unit volume
phase is going through. You steam, and then the water condenses out of the air when it loses some of its heat.
but per unit volume, water molecules are less dense than nitrogen or oxygen, either one.
Okay, where's your evidence for that?
It's on the periodic table. It's in high school science.
No, it's not.
Well, see, that's the problem we have, Howard.
It doesn't say that water is blah 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 on the periodic table.
Howard,
Yes, it does. You
Howard,
look at the
Howard,
atomic
that's not good enough for us that it's on the periodic table. I know it sounds like it would be good enough, like it's a very basic fundamental thing, but we're here to question the basic and fundamental things. So we want to know what that was based on. What did they base the periodic table on?
That was kind of a deep question. I guess you'd have to go way back into the discovery of the atom and how they determine, molecular weights and atomic structure.
All right, then who discovered the atom? Let's bring up who discovered the atom.
Whew, I have no idea.
Let's bring it up. We have the technology to figure that out real quick here.
But I did find on I think it was Engineering Toolbox.
Or just switch topics.
No, I think this is getting interesting, actually.
I mean, in my opinion, the whole microcosm of and breaking down to the molecular level, I think, tries to control the narrative with the elite PhDs, people who can't get to that level in terms of having the equipment. I mean, think about this. I mean, like the whole bullshit, Howard, I don't know if you buy into this or not, but whatever that thing out there in space, at 1 tablespoon of it is like 1 trillion tons. Okay, so where do we have
what the hell are you talking about, Travis?
Where do we have a sensitive scale enough to weigh something that we can't even take a hold of, or that even stands still, right? Didn't somebody say that an atom is moving and jiggling around at like billions? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know.
I'm hearing a bunch of
I understand what you're saying. You're talking about some depth of the subject there that it's not just answerable in one answer there.
And look, Howard, I can completely respect that response, right? I have more respect for that response than someone else who was on the panel a little while ago. But listen, Rob, you better pipe down.
I don't understand.
It's all right. None of us do, Rob.
There was a guy before. Sorry, Brandon.
No, I was just going to mention we were talking about who came up with the atom. It was Democritus, evidently, an old ancient Greek. So
That's
who
the
knows? That's probably
story.
made up bullshit. But anyway,
After democracy.
Okay, wait. So stop right there, right? But okay, so if that's the starting point of a philosophical idea, when did that philosophical idea get weighed? When did it get manipulated?
I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that.
Sure as hell didn't get weighed back in 250 BC.
No, it didn't. And this guy was supposed to, he was a Greek philosopher who lived about 100 years before Aristotle, evidently. And Aristotle disagreed with his atomic theory. And then this guy, all the way in 18-something, 1814 to 1819, anyway, somewhere around there, what is this guy's name? John Dalton is credited with the next big leap, which I haven't figured out exactly what that is supposed to be yet, but atomic theory, evidently.
So we still haven't proven an atom yet. I got a brother named Adam. I don't think that's the same thing.
No, yeah, there are atoms out there. Yeah. But atomic weights. Okay, here we go. Atomic weights. Dalton first published his first table of relative atomic weights containing 6 elements: hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, sulfur, and phosphorus, relative to the weight of an atom of hydrogen conventionally taken as 1. But how did he do this? Okay. We'll have to, this is something that should be researched, which I'm sure it has, but that we need to get smart on. Some kind of experiment. There's definitely an opportunity here.
Flat Earth University.
I guess it is. I was just hoping we could get to an answer somehow on this Wikipedia, that it would be obvious. What is his dang experiment?
But do we really want to be wiki parroting pretender clowns?
No. But this might lead us to a source that would tell us.
Yeah, I agree.
Remember,
I was just
gas,
trying to be funny. Come on.
Oh.
gas has to be weighed in a container, gentlemen. So when you say that the water displaces the nitrogen, not in a container, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
Hey, listen,
It's a heterogeneous mixture it forms. The water does not displace the oxygen and the nitrogen, people. It's a lie that someone told a few minutes ago, or a falsehood. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense to me. What I was going to say about the sauna is when you're in the sauna, it's all steamy. I mean, everybody knows. I would think everybody would agree that they would think that air is thicker and hence more dense
wet and heavy
than
on
dry
you.
air. Right? I don't know. There's something weird here. I wish somebody here had investigated.
I know you guys are hurting my
this a little
brain,
more.
man.
Well, I had to stop when they add gravity and R to this gas above the ground and water vapor. I quit. Why fuck with it?
Hey, listen, let me just jump in real quick and address Toady UK. He says it's a shame that these gaps are so limiting for these people on the panel. Okay, listen, Toady.
Join the panel.
I didn't go into
Educate us.
Shut up, okay? Rob? Just kidding, man. Listen,
I love you, Travis. Sorry.
I did not go into the scientific field, Toady. I went into the theological field, okay? So whatever I learned back in high school, I don't remember having these questions. I might have, but, I wasn't interested. I didn't care about it, whatever. The thing is, we're having these questions now, right? And so it's not a very fair criticism if none of us on the panel have this background in their back pocket. So we're talking about it. But yeah, like I think Jimbo said, or Rob said, join the panel. Come on, Toady. You're a sensible guy.
Yeah, come and educate us, Toady. We're looking for the experimental evidence behind these atomic weights and the existence of the atoms, etc. Something to substantiate this. But he did
found
say
it, though.
something, Toady UK. He said you're confusing, and this might be the source of some of the confusion. I agree. Moisture vapor with wet air. You are confusing moisture vapor with wet air.
It sounds like
Well-
Cody is
well,
confused.
Think of it this way: if the moisture,
that's
if the
true.
vapor of water was displacing the nitrogen and oxygen, then when you went in the sauna, you'd only have vapor. All of the nitrogen and oxygen would be shoved out of your steam room.
Well,
So it
if
doesn't
all of the
displace
molecules had
nothing.
been replaced, you would be underwater.
I
Yeah.
found the answer, Brandon.
Okay,
It's more
yeah.
ridiculousness.
Let me read the second half of his sentence real quick before we go on. Don't confuse the two, they differ. Water vapor isn't damp air. So, whatever. Essie, go ahead.
I posted it on the side chat. Very simple. Anybody could do this. All you have to do is the atomic weight of any atom can be found by multiplying the abundance of an isotope of an element by the atomic mass of the element and then adding the results together. This equation can be used with elements with 2 or more isotopes. I posted it on the side. Anybody could do this.
Yep, I'm sharing it right now, I believe. Do you guys see it? Yeah, you should. Oh no, I'm sharing the wrong screen with you guys. Hold on. That's not cool. All right. You should see it now. Oh, it's a live science. Do I have to take what is this crap? No, get out of here. Damn pop-ups ads, scourge of the universe. How do you weigh an atom? Imagine
Any
see,
scale there? I don't.
With chemistry, it's difficult to take the didactic side of things, the text and the readings, without being in the laboratory to illustrate it. It's very difficult. That's why we have labs. With about any science class you take, you're going to have a laboratory portion of that. That's where you'll illustrate these concepts.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I had a very cursory education in these concepts. I never would have thought to question the existence of an atom when I was younger. But yeah, I won't pretend to be any more than a adult when it comes to chemistry. That's for sure. But
It's an equation, basically.
Me too.
They're telling you it's an equation.
I'm organic chemist, so I have a notion of what's going on in chemistry and some of the physics and notions involved with all this shit.
well, okay.
But you deny that the water molecule is lighter than the nitrogen molecule.
It's not gases have to be contained to be weighed. Am I not correct? You also stated that the water vapor displaces nitrogen and oxygen. It doesn't. You were wrong there too. I'm not arguing with you about anything or denying anything or validating or confirming anything from you. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's see what this guy says. So, Essie, you read this already? Let me see. Instead, physicists for over a century have used an instrument called mass spectrometer. First, physicists
How can you weigh
ionize
something with a mass spectrometer?
I think this is what it's going to say. First, physicists ionize a gas of atoms by firing a beam of particles at the gas, which either adds electrons to the atoms in it or knocks a few of their electrons off, depending on the type of particle beam used. This gives the atom now known as ions a net negative, or positive electric charge. Wow.
Yeah, outside of just the fundamentals of my understanding, that just went beyond my pay grade.
There was some words in there I don't know if I understand completely, just to be honest. I'd have to read that
'cause
3 or
it's
4
nonsense.
times.
It's nonsense, guys. That's why we don't understand it.
Read it again.
But they do this in the lab. I mean, they actually do this in lab.
Like any language, if you don't have the vocabulary, forget it, or glossary of terms and a good understanding of them, you're like a babe in arms. It hurts. It hurts to watch all this for me sometimes, but carry on.
Okay.
How do they weigh it, Jimbo?
Yeah. Tell us how they
Explain-
weigh it.
If you know, explain it to us.
They weigh gas in containers, period. You got a propane tank, you can put 18 pounds of liquid propane in it. Here you go.
Yeah, but an atom, how do you weigh an atom? How do they? I'm really curious.
I don't
have
know.
No clue, bro.
I don't worry about that. I work in the lab with atomic mass units, and they work, and I don't care what they are, where they come from, or whose ass they came from. I put stuff in vessels, react them, and I get the products that I want out of it. I don't give a fuck about the rest. And I do know, like I say, you know, water does not displace oxygen and nitrogen in the air, buddy. So, like I say, I try not to deal with most of this shit because I just get a fucking headache. So deal with it, guys. You're doing good. At least you're looking at it. I'm happy for that. But there's so much bullshit, like I say, bringing in.
Well, we got to see the bullshit to know
and
there's
R.
bullshit, right, Jimbo?
Yeah, you'll find it. Oh, trust me. You don't need me to find the bullshit. It was all made without me, so you can find it without me. I pointed you at it, and it's an important one to get through, because again, it nulls that claim of a gradient to the vacuum of space, and that's a big one to fuck them up on.
All right. Well, I just found something while reading this here. Lastly, by way of Newton's second law of motion, F equals ma. There it is. Rearranged as m equals fa. Right? The physicists divide the total force acting on the ions by their resulting acceleration to determine the ion's mass.
I'm going to say there was electromagnetic forces involved.
Okay. All right.
Me too.
The mass of the electron has also been determined using a mass spectrometer. Electrons were simply sent through the instrument themselves. That measurement enables physicists to determine the mass of an atom when it has the correct number of electrons. I don't know. I have to look at this in more
That sounds
depth.
like math to me, Brandon.
It sounds like an equation to me based on gravity.
A probability distribution?
That's the new system. The old system is orbital. Oh, that's another thing I want to touch on. They were talking, Lemon was talking with this guy and Jose about atoms. And I asked him, do you know the two type of atomistic systems? He had no clue. So there's the orbital type and there's the probabilistic type that Rob just said. It's a cloud of probability.
Huh?
Yeah, I think I checked the general.
Okay.
And you'll see, go to 535. Right the hand posted the old model of the atom.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Yep.
If you scroll down.
Well, let's show people that
550.
real quick. That's the old model of the atom, right?
Yeah.
550,
and
okay.
I posted scroll down to 550 and I posted the other model.
Is this the one?
That's 2 of 3. The one that most go by today and that is taught is called, let me see, give me a second. Oh, the valence theory.
Yeah, post the other one too, Brandon.
Yeah,
right
it's
under
by Linus Pauling, and that's the one that he won Nobel Prizes for chemistry, but he gave us the valence theory for these orbitals and electrons, and that's the one that's taught today, basically. But I'll go find that one and add it back.
Okay, sounds good.
This is, can I just add something? Because, like, this is why they say a lot of, like, matter is empty space. Because, like, when you look, like, at an electron, it has a proton, neutron, all that shit, and it's all orbiting in empty space, right? So there's space between these little atom particles, like protons and neutrons. That's why, so, like, when you, like, talk to a scientist and you say, I'm touching something, but they say you're not actually touching it because there's space in between what you're touching.
Right.
Like, it's all a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
Yeah. They used to say that the atom was 96% empty space, I believe, Rob. Yeah. Until
yeah. What the fuck is that? Yeah.
Yeah. If it was a P, if it was a stadium, it would be a P on the 50-yard line, and then the electron would be like the last row of the stadium.
Yeah, like between the nucleus and the orbit, it was just space. Now it's a probabilistic cloud
So
Well,
is it so?
probabilities.
Just
I-
tell me
I
what I'm
did-
looking
I
at.
did-
These two lopsided boobies here. What does this mean?
Garbage. You're looking at garbage.
So
Anyway,
lopsided-
The
Outside movies.
electron orbiting in a probabilistic manner.
Yeah.
Like they don't know where it is at any given moment. Where the old one, they knew exactly where it was orbiting like the moon.
yeah,
I thought they did. Yeah.
I posted the current one.
Can we get a
with the-
demonstration of an orbit?
Hi. I posted the valence theory, and it's the one that's currently used. And, you know, people in the labs doing whatever, they use the valence theory. For nuclear magnetic resonance, AA spectroscopy, they use the valence theory. That way everyone's on the same page
Where do you post it? Gas pressure?
in the gas pressure. And it's just one link of thousands you can find on the valence theory. It's Linus Pauling, an amazing chemist and Nobel Prize winner. I don't know what else to say, you know.
Well,
One of my heroes.
what is this? I mean,
Nobel Prize for garbage.
tell us what we're looking at.
Basically, but it works. It's-
What does it mean? What is the valence theory, Jimbo?
Well, the valence theory is that there are specific elevations over the nucleus of the atom, and these electrons, if you will, orbit at these very specific levels. Okay, when they get hit by energy or excited heat, whatever, different things can cause that. Normally, say an S1 valence, the first orbital, to raise to the S2 or sp2 orbital. Now, when it does that, it stored energy. It went from like 1.5 volts to 3 volts of potential.
Oh, we're losing your sound a little.
Okay, it
So we're
increases
talking about
the voltage
electromagnetism.
potential, and it raises where the electron is orbiting above into another definite track or orbit one layer higher. Add more energy, you can increase it even more. In fact, the highest valence you can get for hydrogen is to get it up to the 12 volts on one single hydrogen atom. It can't
Isn't that how you change make it into different elements?
Rumpus
That's
and
how
his
you make
ramblings.
elements by changing that the orbit around it.
I
Or the
don't
cloud.
know. I don't know for sure, but I know that they claim they make helium, and they'd have to make helium by fusing hydrogen with no oxygen, no chlorine, no nothing. It means burning helium with it or hydrogen with itself and having it fuse to make the helium.
Yeah, some crazy amount is the helium is actually created by us. Like a small amount is just natural. I think I might have that mixed up though.
Yeah, some stuff, if it's patented, only people who pay for the patent can make and have the pro. You know, so and some patents are very expensive. So I don't know if they're doing it under patent and we just don't know about it or what. But
B. Lou Miller, thank you very much for your 666 donation via Streamlabs. Really appreciate that, man. Hope you could hear the thing.
but they're you know, big
Yeah, there
cylinders
is.
all the way down to little portable ones you can get to fill balloons and stuff. You know,
Well, that's
There
fake
doesn't seem to
helium.
be a shortage there. I don't know what it is. It's marked helium, for heaven's sake, and
Yeah, you can put it up to your cloud. You can download it.
but yeah, all of this stuff is based on very retarded theories and very convoluted nonsense in many instances. I agree to that. Most of what I could have, what I've learned, really, it could have been done with just simple electricity and a better understanding of plus and minus and electrical bias, if you will, because that's all chemistry is. You're setting up a plus and a minus and having them hook up in the middle. Nothing more, nothing less.
I think that's
All
what the difficult part is. Yeah, just hooking it up in the middle.
Huh.
So learning better electricity and knowing more about electrical, you'll be a better chemist because you don't have to know chemistry, just how to make one thing charged positive, one thing charged negative. And they do their thing. They don't know what else to do. It's
And you'll
really
be a better human too.
a lot of it, like in plating, we call it electroplating, electrochemistry. I mean, you dunk steel into a solution and it gets tinned or brassed or chromed or whatever you want. It's just some electricity and makes different potentials on the two materials and they become attracted to each other. There's an affinity developed. It's like when boy meets girl type of thing.
Dang, Jimbo ain't getting enough credit around here. Tell you that much.
But yeah,
So this is
too much
interesting
of it is
stuff, Jimbo.
convoluted.
I'm still very confused, but I'll have to research it on my own what any of this means. But I mean, nothing I've seen says here's the experimental evidence that any of what we said earlier, including the atoms bonding together, is true. But I'll have to read into it. I'm sure somebody out there knows what they're talking about, so just have to find it.
Technically, they don't join together. They share an affinity, and it's only temporary too. Like, you can break down water back to its hydrogen and oxygen.
Can't hear you, Jimbo.
You're really low.
Okay. Yeah. Again, they don't really bond. It's just an electrical affinity. If they get more electricity, they can break up again, just like water breaks down into hydrogen and oxygen fairly easily. Same thing with the chemicals that you mix. You can break them down. You can reverse most processes. Go one way and then shift them back. They're equilibrium reactions. Well, we call them equilibrium, just like water vapor equalizing in the air, whatever. But it's the same thing. It's just a balance, plus and minus. It's an affinity, an electrostatic affinity.
All right.
It's in chemistry, it's in everything.
Okay, so interesting stuff. Well, you sent us down a pretty good rabbit hole there, Jimbo. Does anybody else have anything to say about this atomic weights?
One thing quickly, Brandon, if
Yeah.
you can. Just to do with the atoms. Where I think it was SE said that the things are supposed to be 96% not solid, or something to that effect. It's way, way worse than that. I heard or I saw that an atom might have been hydrogen, or I don't know. Let's say it's hydrogen. What's the neutron? Is that the thing in the middle, the center of the atom, theoretically?
The nucleus,
Is it called the neutron? The
Neutron,
okay.
proton, and electron supposed to be the three parts of the atom.
That's the
Yes.
back of the argument. And then you've got the so-called electron field. Now, the volumetric difference between the neutron and the field, the totality of the field, is 10 to the power of 12. So it is, and it's not 96%. It's some astronomically large amount of emptiness theoretically. So they gave the example that if the neutron was a golf ball, the outside of the electron field would be 8 miles away. So all that empty space in 3 dimensions, 8 miles between a golf ball and
sounds about right.
Yeah, they're insane.
That's how mental it is, and yet when you touch something, it's solid, but there's that much emptiness inside the solidity. That's all I wanted to add.
Flat earthers are crazy.
Well, something to think about.
That's what black holes supposedly are.
Think of this. They say that electricity travels about a foot an hour. If you followed one electron through an electrical conductor or wire, it would only travel about a foot in an hour.
A foot in an hour? What?
Right. The space between where they have to go, for us, we think it's 4 feet of cord. At an atomic level, it's 1,000,000 miles for an electron.
Oh. Yeah, this smells like a bunch of made up shit mixed in with
Smells like bullshit.
Yep.
applied science.
Yep.
So they've got all these little tiny things that we can't see orbiting each other, and that's what we're all made of, and that's what everything in the universe is made of, right? Pretty much. Some of them stick together, some of them don't.
Yep, and some of them appear out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
They all came out of nothing.
Well, this is
Yeah, but they say that in space, right? The 0-point energy, that stuff appear out of nowhere. Particles just come into existence.
I'm not so sure about that. You have rules. Well, rules. They say matter can be neither created nor destroyed. Same with energy. It only changes form.
Check out 0-point energy, Jimbo. I'm sure you heard of it.
Oh, yeah, and it's very real. There are things that do, say, produce an amount of electricity, and environmentally it gets magnified or amplified through a device that we make. I have no doubt that we're going to have lots of 0 point energy one day, but there is something holding it back, and I don't know what that is. Maybe it's too many scammers and fakes out there. I don't know. But yeah, 0 point energy, we're surrounded. We're in an energetic environment. Every square foot of air and every foot up and below us, everything is charged and electric and literally potential. We're in a very dynamic, supercharged world, and the energy is everywhere. And it's finding ways to harness dynamically that free energy. It's there. Some people have moderate success. Some people get really funky, you know, phenomena happen and stuff. But again, it's like, when you're looking at something new, how do you figure out what's really happening and always be able to reproduce it exactly?
But we have a paradox here. We have 0 point energy, which says that stuff comes in and out of existence. And then we have the thing that says we can't destroy nor create energy.
Well, like I say, we're in a highly energetic environment. So it's already there all around us. Like if you walk through New York City, I tell you, you feel the static electricity in the air, like a buzz. I'm not joking. It's
You know what?
got so much power, electricity going through. You feel your hair stands and is kind of like ionized and electrified walking the streets there.
I'll back you up on that because I used to work in a gas station. And I know this is going to sound stupid, but there was so many machines and electronics and cash registers and signs and lights in that place. It was just like full of electrical stuff, right? And the power went out, and it was like I could just feel all that energy just dissipate immediately. Do you guys know what the feeling I'm talking about? I just remember it because it was so much crap going on around me, and
Very
then it
real.
ended
Oh.
instantly.
It envelops you, every hair, every follicle, your eyelashes, everything. It just makes it like kind of buzz or resonate or tingle.
Yeah.
When you're in that kind of environment, it's just a static that's in the air and it charges, and it's a little uncomfortable for some people. I don't like walking into these super bright garages and oh gosh,
It does feel good
You
when
don't
the power goes out, though. It's like, there's
Oh, yeah.
nothing going
Oh, yeah.
on. Like the energy, the air's like still, like everything's less energetic. It just feels calmer.
normal. Yeah, and you wish it would stay off almost.
Yeah. I guess we're the crazy ones. No one's backing us up on this. So that's all right, Jimbo. Anyway, okay, so 0 point energy. I've never heard about this. This is like free energy pretty much, right? That's what they're trying to perpetual motion and that kind of stuff. Is that along those lines, or is there something more to it?
Well, they might have had it in the time of like the Tartarian structures with the domes and all those funky cones and stuff on the corners of buildings and around buildings. That may have been just to harvest static electricity to make it power for lighting and other stuff. They had these things. One day I'll do a little folder on them, but they're called moon towers. Every city had them, and they were like big bright lights that lit up on the top of these towers. And they called them moonlights. And they worked off field energy, like these ones in Tibet and China and whatever. There was a time they used to light up at night, at dusk, and provide light. So that energy out there, what you're calling zero energy, it's out there, and I think it was used back then. But I don't
0
know.
point energy. Sorry, Jimbo. So people can understand a little bit. Don't get triggered on this, Jimbo. What I'm going to say. They say it's a replacement for the brain blank. The ether.
Ether.
Don't get triggered, Jimbo. I'm just repeating what I heard, bro.
That's cool. I helped you out with the word.
Can we replace the word energy with motion? Right? Is that something that will ever happen, or is everybody just like, no, I got to use this
It
vague
kind
word
of
that
be
doesn't describe?
acceptable, but it would take more investigation. I'm not against that idea, but not 100% for it yet either. But yeah, motion, like you got these lasers, a purple laser, I think it is, can shoot through glass and turn or spin a aluminum wind vane, if you will. It's a laser vane. There's got to be something going through the glass and impacting on the aluminum and pushing it. And all you're doing is pointing a laser through a glass at it.
Something
No.
can't move without something that's moving. Right? So you can't have something.
There has to be a particle or something physical hitting that surface to make it move.
Yeah,
A
so that's why
physical impact of some kind.
yeah, motion is what is transferred, not energy. You transfer motion from one object to another. You take a moving object that has motion and you hit or touch an object that's not moving, and it will transfer that motion. Everybody like, oh, it's transferring force and energy, but they can't describe it. Can't describe what energy or force is. It's conceptual terms. But motion, very defined, very clear. You can understand how a bat moving hits a ball, and the ball is now moving too, because the bat was moving and it transferred the motion.
Think of sunlight hitting a steel rail car, or your car for that matter. It gets hot. Is that from the impact and the radiation of heat from impacts? From the light impacting on the car and the surface?
I think like fire, right? Fire is just, you ever see fire in water?
Friction
The
causes
water
heat.
is rolling. It's like moving uncontrollably. They call it a rolling boil, right? Moving, rolling. So a fire is just crazy amounts of motion being transferred into the water, right? Rubbing your hands together. What if you rubbed your hands together 100 times a second? Your skin would fall off, right?
Pretty much.
So all these terms.
Friction
So
causes heat.
temperature. Yeah, heat, temperature, that's all referred to motion. It's just the amount of motion.
Yep.
Faster is hotter, slower is colder, right? So this is how you take something that is so simple, right? God made this thing so simple, right? Motion, not moving, right? And they want to turn it into this fucking tapioca pudding.
Complicated barrage.
Yeah, it's simple stuff, bro. Real simple.
How often have you seen lakes boil? Not too often. Most of them, water just evaporates off them, you know. So we're not dealing with the boiling point at all when it comes to lakes and oceans. Information about vapor pressure at boiling point is out there, but our lakes and oceans don't boil. We have a different range
But
we're
they
working
evaporate.
with. So it's wrong to
Evaporation
bring
is
in like
motion.
the boiling water.
Like if you leave water, it'll leave. It won't sit in that cup. It will move out of that cup, right? It'll disappear. Now where it
Every
goes,
drop, every molecule.
well, if it's made up of molecules, or whatever it is, but the action of the water is moving. It moves out of the glass. So water is always
But it brings its
motion.
weight with it too. Its mass is gone too. And that's in the air now, making the air
Mass is
heavier.
their word. I don't use the word mass. That's a measurement of
Or
acceleration,
whatever.
time, and it's all
It'll
bullshit.
add
Use
to
the
whatever it
amounts of
adds
stuff.
to, make it more dense. And like I say, I don't mind density when it comes to gases. It fits.
I
It's what's
do.
used.
Density, because gases aren't there, and this is where their entire bullshit comes from. Look up Brownian motion, right? It is particles moving in a liquid medium, right? The particles. Now, what they did was they took Brownian motion and removed the medium. They removed the liquid and just said, yep, that's what air does. It's just the particles, right? That's ridiculous. Come on.
Are there any examples of energy without movement that doesn't involve movement?
Nope. Even the creation of light involves matter and energy. There's no way around it. You have to have motion and kinetics and friction, other things. It's physical.
Okay. I was just curious because I was sitting there trying to think of one. and I couldn't come up with one.
We have an expression, nothing is nothing.
Yeah. So Brownian motion, what is this all about? Any and various physical phenomena in which some quantity is constantly undergoing small random fluctuations.
The idea was that they saw particles in milk or whatever, or like the pollen, right? This is where the pollen landed in the milk, and it never stayed. They were just constantly moving around, and that's what they based air. Well, they'll say like, oh, if you heat up water with dye in it, the dye will get moved around faster, right? It'll become, so they're just like, oh, there must be molecules moving around that mixes. So it's not a
They
thing they
deduced
actually
from
saw.
the pollen moving, they deduced that something is pushing them. So that
Yeah.
something is the bouncing balls, yeah.
Yeah, well, if you heat a pot of water, it sets up convection currents. It sets up the hottest point in the middle. It rises up, some evaporates, and the boiling action and rising up, it has to go somewhere. It spills out to the sides of the pot, cooling while it does, and returns to the bottom, goes back to the center and back up and around, like a convection, like a little donut shape going round and round.
Jimbo, we have to tie the microphone around your neck, bro.
I was doing it,
right?
Yeah, but yeah, okay, I gotta stop, I guess.
All right. Well, let me introduce the new panel members that we have that I haven't said hello to. We got Mobius. What's going on, Mobius?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on? And Patient Zero, Aaron. What's up, man? All right, he must be working. Phythesis? Did I pronounce that right?
Phythicist, something like that.
Phythesis. Oh, it's Lemon. You changed your picture. What's going on?
Yeah. Not much. Just enjoying another day on this flat plane.
Oh, that's what's his name from X-Men, isn't it? What the heck's that guy's name?
Cyclops.
Cyclops. Do you know one of the greatest travesties ever is the fact that the X-Men weren't in the Marvel movies? It just pisses me off so much. Anyway.
It was a crime against nature. They've gone through so many reboots, though. They got their own thing going on.
Yeah, they do. Some of those movies are pretty cool. And I think that's it. Those are the two new panel members. So we've just been bullshitting. If you guys got anything to bring to the table, go ahead. We've been talking about all kinds of stuff. Jimbo brought in some stuff regarding gas pressure. We talked about vapor pressure. We had a rumpus couple of minutes, and that's about it. So what's going on?
Sounded like y'all were talking about the bouncing ball atomism or something like that.
Yeah, we were trying to find, or I was at least, the experimental evidence for that model and how they determine the atomic weights.
It's philosophically assumed. It's a starting point for investigation.
Yeah, the weights come from the fact that they have to explain that 1 cubic centimeter of different pieces of matter, right? Different types of matter with the same volume have different weight. They have to explain that somehow, right? Because they have their universal down, right? So their thing pulls on everything equally. So they're like, oh, well, why doesn't that? So now they have to explain that with, oh, well, there's more stuff. When you say more stuff, you mean less nothing, right? So you have to subscribe. If you subscribe to more stuff per volume, you have to also subscribe to less stuff. Right?
Well, I got a weird one for you. This stuff called gallic acid, you can have a pound, but it's so voluminous, it'd fill up like a cubic meter. It almost blows away when you open the lid on it, It's so light. So
yeah, but that doesn't explain why.
The volume, structure or something. But no, yeah, you're right. It's all models and stories based around models and theory, and there are different groups or theories out there for literally everything, including electricity. There's positive whole theory and there's negative to positive theory. There's valence theory for electron orbitals. There's 3 theories at least for that. You know, the current one, the one that I was taught, is the valence theory, Linus Pauling. That's the one that, as far as I'm concerned, most people are taught today. So I don't know. The 2 old ones, we don't even look at them. And as far as, well, working with weights and masses and stuff, you use the atomic mass units and you live with it. Everything works. So I don't even care if people talk in kilos, pounds, or newtons, or just whatever. I mean, an atomic mass unit is universal. It
It's
doesn't matter where
basically
you're
a
working.
it only becomes a fallacy though if they're saying, stuff, that occupies space is matter. Matter takes up space, and space, goes in and around matter, or whatever is around matter that takes up the space. And assuming that it has to interact with like a scale in a set fashion. Because there is stuff that appears to have form and be very matter-like that doesn't necessarily interact with the scale. Stuff like helium,
Well,
air, and
I
stuff like that.
myself wouldn't be surprised if all these chemicals and stuff, atoms we call them, are just more energetic material that we don't quite understand yet, and not mass at all.
Moving
At
material,
all. Yeah, energetic matter.
moving matter. Remember, we're
Moving
replacing
matter, slowly moving matter, because we have mass. We don't move that fast. You know, we perceive a certain speed, but we really don't go fast.
Alexander Lightwater in the chat mentioned crystals and the fact that let me see if I can find his exact comment now. I scrolled down, but he said that they can convey information, I believe it was. From crystals comes information that shows no visible motion. So I did ask him if he would consider that energy, but that's interesting.
I'm sorry. If he's getting information, there has to be electron flow or something that is non-continuous signal, an interrupted signal, a show of intelligence. You know, you can't have a crystal just being intelligent or giving off or storing data. It's so silly.
Yeah.
And information has to be change, right? You can't gather new data, which is what information is, however you want to word it, some sort of new input without change, and you can't have change without motion. Hate to break it to y'all.
I think what he's saying about information is there's something that's unchanged that is conveyed by the crystal. Like the information or whatever he's talking about goes from, I don't know, light to crystal, the receiver or whatever, without being changed by the matter.
Then there's still
matter related.
Okay, if you're getting information through the crystal from light moving through it, then it's not really, it's
Yeah, something unchanged is being transferred without changing, hands with the matter. I think that's what they're trying to say is quote unquote information. Something
there's
is
still
being
movement.
preserved.
There's still movement. There's no information in an inanimate object other than it's a rock, it's a crystal, etc. You can talk to one if you want, but I mean, you probably won't get
And
much
I think
from
he's
it.
defining
To exchange
information as
you
something
need a
that
sender and a receiver as well, right?
I think the definition of information here is something that is unchanged, that is conveyed by the medium of the crystal without being changed or, rearranged.
So if I put 2 crystals beside each other, they communicate?
No, the definition has changed. Something has been carried by the crystal without being changed. So that's what I think they're talking about with information, but I'd have to look into this further.
Hold on. According to atomic and theories, doesn't everything vibrate? There's no such thing as nothing not moving according to their own.
Everything has nuclear magnetic resonance.
Exactly.
Everything.
So that's it. End of story right there.
Fancy word for everything moves.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Next
That's
question.
What spectroscopy looks at the magnetic resonance of either atoms or of molecules. It makes a fingerprint, a color fingerprint of them. A rainbow, if you will. But it's the exact pattern of the colors is like a fingerprint
right
for each thing.
Hey, somebody touched on it was a matter of philosophy, the atom and that whole atomic construct. And I've been thinking the last few days with this whole election thing going on, I've been remembering back to when I first got into flat Earth, and one of the things that really clued me into, hey, there's something here more than just some, idiots on the internet who think the Earth is flat. And it was the behavior of the ballers and how they acted like political operatives that I dealt with when I was really into politics, and the way they acted, the use of logical fallacies, the use of rhetoric, that kind of thing. And it kind of dawned on me, you guys are probably way ahead of me on this, but it kind of dawned on me how a lot of these scientific decisions, this so-called settled science, really comes down to political decisions at the time they were made. This is like all politics, a lot of it. Would you guys agree with that or disagree?
You know what I find it comparable to?
100%, bro. It's by voting.
You know,
They vote.
here you go for so-called science and regular society. Well, I've been to town hall meetings, and there's a thing called railroading. There are people, even in the audience, in the crowd, who are there with an agenda, and they work with the people who are your counselors and stuff. Now, if a normal citizen comes up with this or that, they're there to jump up, propose something else, get it detract, be against it, do whatever. Anything that's against the agenda, they already have plants in there to
Just
fight
the
it.
peer review system.
Yes, exactly.
Right there, it's game over.
Same thing. There's
So
no
now, if I'm
difference.
a scientist, right, and my theory is whatever, gravity, right? And some other dude comes along and says, no, your theory's wrong. And I'm on that panel, right? Am I going to vote this guy in? Am I going to vote his idea in? Or am I going to blacklist him?
Yeah, exactly. What if your boss or you're hoping for a job at Harvard one day and the head of physics there publishes a paper and everybody else thinks he's fantastic, or they're all butt kissers, or they're all looking for grants or whatever. There's all these ancillary motivations. Or what if your whole organization is sponsored by the Queen, and that's where you get a source of your funding, and that's the source of all power in your society, and the Queen or the Queen's family or people have a certain idea of how the world is. Are you gonna put out something?
What's going on, guys?
Hey, what's up, Matrix? Are you gonna put something
Brandon
out?
Tory, I agree with you 100%, bro. What in the point that you just made? I think that's the case, and that's exactly what's going on. I think all science is funded, and if you don't reach the conclusion that science wants you to reach, which is not the truth, then you will not be funded.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we've seen some of that with the climate science, right? With the global warming, that's come to light a few times where stuff's happened, and that's pretty obvious, I think. But I'm thinking back, it might even been worse back in like Newton's day when the Royal Society was founded, because that was chartered by the Queen. And a lot of this science that we deal with today, a lot of the model stems from decisions that were made way back then. And those were all like from the elites in society that created this Royal Society.
I doubt very much, for some reason, that Newton existed. I think these characters, they just give us characters because it's easier to accept a myth than an actual person. You know, a person could be scrutinized and stuff, but a myth can never be killed.
Yeah, like one of my favorite lines is nobody would buy space time if some guy called Larry told you about it, right? You remember you come into work one day and you're like, the guy from HR is like, hey, what do you think about space time being the reason something? Nobody would give a shit. But if you make it come from the smartest man that's ever lived, yeah, people are going to take notice.
Oh, yeah, you could even make a fabric after and bend it too.
And part of it is agenda. That's where the political aspect comes in, where they want to go in a certain direction. It may or may not even be the best or the worst direction, but this is the direction because of funding, interest, or just decisions that people want to take. Like I was watching Pete and Pete, and they were talking about science versus pseudoscience, and they had Tesla reference to Tesla and his Cliff Tower, and I'm like, why is this on science versus pseudoscience? And then when they talked about Tesla, they didn't talk about whether his wireless technology worked. They took the angle that it was a wireless electricity that was going to mess with communication, because every time you have an electrical field or something, it messes with radio communication. So they weren't taking the stance that it was science or pseudoscience. They took the agenda stance that said, basically, this stuff may work, but it's going to mess with communications. And so if you have radar or something like that, you can't have this technology with communications. So they were really making more of the point that, technology can be suppressed if it goes against another agenda out of political motivation.
Look, I watch Pete and Pete on their water electrolysis bullshit and a lot of their garbage. Good God, you're quoting Pete and Pete.
Boy,
Where are we?
I try to take the
dear God.
Well, I try to take the meat and spit out the bones, and I go with their skepticism and say, are these people serious? Are they just being fake? Are they controlled opposition, or some combination therein? Maybe it's a little bit of truth mixed with some dog shit. You never know. And so I just look at it and I'm like, how critical do I need to be of this?
Yeah, well, they practice sword fighting on a single bed at night there.
It's all ad homs right now. What's wrong? What is it? They make you feel bad.
They're so full of it. I just
Why?
can't.
Can you name
Some
one thing
people like that,
How about one specific thing they've done that you're like, hey, this is bullshit?
Their water electrolysis and blah 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 bullshit
what
on
about
that
it?
for hours and hours. That's one of my big gripes. I mean, go back to school.
What specifically?
You're saying that water, you don't agree with them when they say that water is not water, it could be
I'm not here
elemental?
to do that. There's science and there's these jackoffs. So I mean, I'm not in that department.
I don't debate this. This is not debatable. It's fact. I'm out. I'm not debating it. Water is H2O. That's it. I don't care if there's experiments that prove it's not. I don't care if there's evidence that shows it's not. I'm just going to ad hom the people that present it and then elevate myself above all that crap. Like you're some kind of Albert Einstein.
No,
pretty much.
Not at all. I have my own opinion. That's
I mean,
it.
I love you to death, Jimbo, but you're kind of blue pill when it
it.
comes to certain science topics. I love you to death,
like cooling
Jimbo,
moon rays.
but you're kind of blue
I
pill
love
in that regard.
topic.
Yeah, I
Let's
mean, you
talk
are very
cooling moon rays.
scientific and very rigorous, but you are kind of blue pill too. That's all that I'm saying.
Let's do the cooling moon rays. See where we are with that.
I mean, there's a big difference between water not being H2O and cooling moonlight, man. Like, you got to understand, the atoms are little solar systems. They love selling you their signature, right? The devil signs his little orbiting balls, right? This is what they do.
Well, chemically speaking, water is a metal hydride. It acts and behaves like hydrides do.
You don't
Very
need to
important
see where-
chemicals in
you got,
chemistry.
like-
So there you go.
You have self-confidence problems, so you need to like use these big words to try and make you like you're better than everybody. But
It's
that's
the
just
vocabulary. If you had one in this science, you'd know.
water is water. Okay,
And
can
that's
you
part of the
demonstrate
problem.
water is anything other than water?
Glossary of
Then maybe I think
terms
it's
is
smart.
too limited here. There's no real knowledge base. There's no glossary of terms. There really isn't an understanding of a glossary of terms or other things
What are you
that,
talking about, bro?
like I say, vapor
So
pressure.
H2O has been
bring it into
constructed
it.
and deconstructed into its parts.
Hey,
Do we have experimentation that
6
shows
years,
that hydrogen and
6 years,
oxygen
vapor
come into
pressure has never
water
entered
and
the-
break down?
6 years, vapor pressure has never entered the picture here. Right.
So we have evidence that you can build up water and break it down into its constituent parts as well?
I'm not talking about that, and that's whatever electrolysis
That's
of water. Who
whatever.
gives a shit?
That's the entirety of
What I'm
your
saying,
about, bro. You're basing
I'm here
everything you
for
say
so-called
on
flat Earth
water being
and not the
H2O.
minutia above ground.
That is your entire point.
We're taking the vapor pressure in the air, and that's what I'm here for tonight. Not the rest of it. Not
Yeah,
for
but
sword
you-
fighting
even
people.
that-
Not for anybody or anything. Just for vapor pressure. I'm focused. You guys aren't.
Yeah, but
So
vapor
if there was a
pressure relies.
real goal of
Okay,
getting
let's
to
bro. Okay. We get the
gradient,
vapor. Oh my God, this guy just
going to a
ran.
vacuum, if that
Okay,
was
can you?
one of the big questions. We're not covering that. We're covering everything else.
Okay, we're gonna get to it. If you'll stop talking, can you stop just talking for a minute, man? Jeez.
Tomorrow.
Look, he's just going, bro. So here, you're when you say vapor pressure, you're just replacing air.
That's all you're doing. You didn't come to some astounding conclusion. You just took a word out and put a new one in. That sounds a little fancier. So instead of air pressure, you got vapor pressure. All right, what is vapor pressure? Well, you gotta assume
No,
the
no,
fall to the same molecular gravity.
I'm not replacing it with a fancier word. I'm
Explain what it is.
replacing it with the
What is it?
cause. The
Cause?
cause of the pressure in the
The cause?
atmosphere. The
What is that?
cause. It is the
What is the
cause
cause?
of pressure,
And
the
okay,
vapor in
pressure
the
of
air and the
what is
temperature.
vapor?
The
That's
cause
what
of pressure is temperature, isn't it?
What is temperature?
it's related.
Temperature is we just got done talking how temperature is a measure of motion.
Pressure
Okay, so the motion of something.
vapor
To something.
exerts the force we call
Okay. Is
the
this?
atmospheric
Are you gonna
pressure.
answer questions? Are
No,
you
I'm
here to
not.
answer questions or
I'm
just
worried about
monologue? Bro,
vapor
he just heard a
pressure
monologue.
and
Look, he
that.
just said
So
he has
whatever
no
you're gonna
intentions of talking.
answer your own
All he
question.
wants to do is
I
just
only have one
bullshit,
thing I'm
bro. He just wants to
proposing here,
bullshit.
and you
Guys,
want to drag me
guys,
somewhere
this
Bro,
is
else.
unnecessary.
you're
This is
stupid, bro.
unnecessary, guys.
Look,
These
he's
words
just
are
going.
all
He doesn't
made up.
stop. He doesn't
These
stop.
words and these terms, they're all made up to try to explain something. So you two arguing about this word and that, they're all made up to describe some sort of phenomena through this thing called science. So that's it's unnecessary to be arguing over which word. You know what I'm saying? They're all
But
invented to explain this very same thing.
no, they have specific meanings. Now, when you say temperature, right, you're referring to hot, which refers to what? How fast the particle is moving in some models. Okay, so we have to clearly establish when somebody's like, well, vapor pressure is the cause of air pressure, right? First, we have to say, what is air pressure? And then it's going to get back to barometers. And so this is all just building theoretical bullshit. So before we start anywhere, we cut it back. Let's make it simple. What are we working with? And then you're just you can't just start with the atomic theory of bouncing particles, right? Because that's ball earth. We're starting anew, right? So we're not giving in to anything that's been given to us, unless you just came here to monologue, which then you could give a shit.
Well, I'm perfectly fine with absorbing the, science back into the flat Earth fold. If this atomic thing has merit, sure. But I guess we need to check, as much as possible, just in case we miss something. That's why I'm asking: has somebody broken down water into its constituent parts of hydrogen and oxygen and built it back up from hydrogen and oxygen? If they have, okay, I would believe, Pete and Pete, or disbelieve Pete and Pete when they appear to be implying that it's something else, like maybe elemental, or something that hasn't really been proven to be made from constituent parts.
I think that's kind of the point of science. It's kind of to give things words that we otherwise don't know. So it's pretty much all an invention, but it has some sort of consistency. You know what I'm saying?
Well, because it's describing reality, right? But when you start taking the descriptions and then start applying them, this is exactly what Ball Earth does. They're like, well, we can't see half a mountain, right? And then to describe it, they say, well, it's because the Earth is curved. And now their description becomes reality. And that's the same thing that's happening over here. We're trying to describe pressure, so we say bouncing atoms, so therefore bouncing atoms are real. It's the exact same thing.
And that's when the word needs to be checked, because these words are mnemonic devices that we use to help describe something in reality if they're rational words. And so even with space-time, it may not be space, it may not even be time, but if it's referring to something actual, like I would say the ether, okay, well then they're just making a new mnemonic device to describe a reality.
Negative, Lemon,
Oh,
negative.
bullshit. You just
Please don't say that.
Here comes the rigid, unyielding scientific standpoint. Here comes the rigid, unyielding scientific standpoint.
One at a time. Can't hear you guys.
Rigid and unyielding. Oh no, he's going to bring in the rigid, unyielding scientific standpoint. What were you saying, Jimbo?
You're bringing in your unicorn gas ether again, your love of your life there, and hugging it all the way through this chat, and you were just waiting to cruise that in there. Go away with making it official that ether is real. Give me a break.
We gotta
get sick of you.
We gotta have the same standard across the board. We can't just say the word ether to describe an effect and then make the ether real, right? Like this is the defining moment, right? Everything here right now, like if we can agree that we don't just make what we believe to be true, and we're open-minded and have discussions and be like, okay, this is what I think, but I agree it's not true, right? Then the ball would actually be a legitimate argument instead of this religious cult.
Yep, like the word space-time should never be said. I mean, it should be said and laughed upon, especially
It's
when they add
basically a
fabric to
concept.
it. Lemon.
It's basically saying that space is something with properties, that it can't be a nothing, which is a logical statement to make, and at least a workable theoretical framework. The rest of it, implying even that space can be nothing, is just madness.
Isn't
but
space time as
bro,
simple as describing an area? I mean, space in certain time is an area. What's so complicated about that?
But it appears
no,
to
it's
have
not. It's not
properties.
that, bro. They make it into a fabric. They take a concept, which is time, and space, which is nothing, and they blend it together to make a fabric, which does fantastical things. That is La La
Okay,
Land. That is to be
so
laughed
the
at,
the
bro.
fallacy the
Not to be
fallacy is thinking
entertained
that
at
nothing.
all.
So the fallacy is that you think that nothing can exist. That space, which very well does exist and is all around us, is nothing. That's a fallacy. Nothing can exist.
Okay,
So
what?
space, at
Call
the
it
very least,
whatever you
needs to
want.
be a
I'll
something.
grant you that. How about time, Lemon?
Space time is like hot dog. It's just
No,
two
no. How about
concepts put
time?
together to
Time
make a new
itself. Do you
concept.
believe time itself is something?
No, but
So how
space
can you
itself
take
is.
something, nothing, combine it with something, and then make something else out of it?
They
Well,
already did
space
it with the
is
term hot dog. Hot dog is neither a dog. It may be hot, but it's not a dog. It's
Yeah,
just
but we can
referring
eat
to a
it,
new concept.
Lemon. Come on now.
And in space, space is something that has a thickness. It has energy.
space.
There's stuff
Space can't be a
in the
thing.
space.
Lemon deserves a
If
reward.
space,
Like, I don't know, some
if space was a
Oscar combo. I don't know.
if
I
space
don't
was a
know.
thing, it wouldn't be space. It would be the thing that it is. So you
But
can't.
matter is
And
going
this,
through space. So if you're saying space is
no,
nothing,
no, no,
then
no.
you're
Hold
making
on,
a
hold on.
logical impossibility where you're saying that something matter can go through nothing, which is even more absurd. You
I'm
need to check
saying,
your philosophy where
well,
space is
bro,
nothing.
I don't apply that. Hold on. What I'm saying is that everything, every little area is occupied, and you displace. Okay, so when you move through water, you're never moving through nothing. There's always something somewhere. You're just displacing it. You're just shuffling all the
Okay,
stuff around.
then we agree that space has to be something that can be shoved out of the
Yeah,
way like
but
an
here's the thing.
ether. We
Yeah,
agree.
well, we're not. Don't stamp the ether on me yet. I'm talking conceptually. You can't have space be a thing, because then space would be a thing and it wouldn't be space. So saying space is like saying nothing.
What? It's just something that tends not to take form. It's like a fluid you can swim through that flows in and out of objects.
Let me
That
put it to you
appears to be
this
a
way,
much more
Lemon.
tenable
Space
philosophy.
is the thing that surrounds the thing, right? The object. Space, in order for you to have an object, you have to distinguish it between something. That's the space. You get it?
I got one too, Montreal. Space is like the paper, right? Without the paper, you can't write anything down. There's nothing to hold the letters, the pen, the ink. You know what I'm saying?
Space is unoccupied area.
But that would imply that nothing can exist. How can you go
No,
through nothing?
No,
no,
no, no.
no,
That's a
How
good
can you
one,
see through
Travis.
nothing
no.
if you're seeing through space? That's the problem with your
Okay,
philosophy.
Lemon,
No,
That
I
makes
don't
space
think
a
I
nothing.
don't think it's
Lemon
unoccupied
bird.
area because remember you're occupying a
Okay,
certain
listen.
area at
Okay,
any certain point, and you're also in space.
okay, listen. Okay. When I said unoccupied, I was thinking of something that's not a physical body, right? There's no other person. There's not a car there. Oh, grab that parking space, right? There's nothing in it. I'm not saying that there's nothing as in no air, no nothing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that emptiness between me and the television right now, that's empty space, right? There's nothing there. That's
So
just the
you're saying
concept.
that nothing can exist? Or are you saying that
No.
there has to be something there?
Okay,
Something
what?
there.
Okay, listen, I'm breathing air. There's air between me and the television, between me and the bar, between me and the front door. Okay, there's air there. There's light there. But there's not a couch there. There's not a motorcycle there. So it's void of those objects.
Yeah, put it this way, Lemon. How would you identify an object? What would you say an object is, Lemon?
Something that exists?
Now,
Something that occupies space, right? Like
Matter
You
occupies
have to
space.
point to it, right? It has to have like a boundary, right?
Matter
Right?
occupies space.
A boundary
But
is some
that
sort of
boundary,
physicality.
after that boundary, that's the space, bro.
But the space itself can't be nothing. It has to be a something, because nothing cannot exist.
It's air. Okay, call it air.
Well, that's problematic when you go to the vacuum where supposedly there is no air unless
Okay,
you're saying there's still
why
air in the
we're
vacuum.
not going
That's
there.
their story. That's what they tell us.
Yeah, I didn't
Who's
go
going
there.
to
Their
the
story has
vacuum?
a very good question that needs
Bro,
to be addressed by the flat earthers, globe
don't-
earthers, or whatever. What is left in the vacuum once you evacuate out all the air? I would
We
say
don't
that there's an
get-
ether there. I guess
we
you
don't get
guys
the
would say that there's a question mark there or something. I don't know.
I would
That
say
is
there's still
idiotic.
water.
The walls of the container want to collapse into the void. The greater the void, the greater the walls want to collapse in on it. It's not
What
ether left
left-
behind,
what
son.
is-
Give me a
what
break. Give me 2 breaks. Give me 5 breaks from that stupidity.
What about whatever's left inside the vacuum is pulling the container towards the center of itself, like a rubber band's
Okay.
pulling itself back in, stretched.
So there's
so
got to
you
be something.
there's something in there, yeah, and you've influenced it to the point where it's now trying to collapse the container from whatever the material inside is doing. So the material inside is doing that. Whatever's
Wants to implode.
thing that is making is making it want to come to the center of mass, quote unquote. Ironically.
And I would say it's ether, the fabric of space itself. You guys would stop thinking and say that it has to maintain and be a nothing to,
Streamlabs from Godzilla, which for some reason won't play. For $5. Thank you, Godzilla. He says, "Remember Pete Shea? He was fun. He did have his moments. Wonder how he's doing." Thanks, Godzilla.
problem because there's not supposed to be
No, it's
anything in the
not.
vacuum to make
You're a
implosion
problem
happen.
philosophically.
You have a serious philosophical problem and you won't even deal with it.
Yeah, come on, we're doing good here. We're trying to get to the bottom of this. What happens, right? Because
There
there's
is
got to
no
be
problem.
There
The
needs to be
walls
a
of the
background medium
container
such
want
as
to pull
ether.
towards the vacuum.
Well,
They want to pull towards the center.
no.
They
Okay,
wanna
hold on,
collapse.
just real quick. Stop. Hold on, just real quick, please. Hold on, please. Okay, going back to what Right the Hand said, let me just try to ask for some clarification. So, if I try to evacuate the air out of a straw, I plug up the one end and I draw the air into my mouth, right? So there's a direction of motion, correct? So if we're then going into a larger arena, a larger area that has stronger walls than a plastic straw, and there is an evacuation valve, right? There's a location of an opening where the air in that space is drawn out. That is the motion that is evacuating the air, and then as well as is creating a drawing in of the walls depending on their strength. Now, if the walls are able to sustain 1,000 pounds of pressure, and I only withdraw 900, and then I shut off the valve, it's not going to collapse. There's nothing sucking in toward the center, right? So that doesn't exist. There's nothing that's sucking in the center of something. It's always going in the direction of the valve, wherever that is.
No, I would say that I hear what you're saying. I would say that it is, but what happens is when the valve is opened, it like accesses, so it connects itself and then it starts reforming or whatever, from that spot. So that spot would have a greater influential potential than its sucking force, but it's still going to it would still suck. It would change its suction, but it would give the suction a direction because the direction would follow the motion of the air that's coming in.
Yeah. But if you evacuate up to 900 pounds and then you shut it off, everything would stabilize inside. There would not be this center absence in the middle, pulling all of the air.
Yeah, and just like a pressure cooker has a little blow valve, When we have vacuum chambers, there are usually pressure relief valves to avoid going beyond the point where your equipment would fail. Safeties, you know, precaution valves and stuff, leader valves. I mean, it's so your equipment doesn't collapse and break or blow up, these relief valves, you know. Vacuums are a powerful force and they can destroy things, you know. And like I say,
Right, but
when you
see,
evacuate
that's
the air, you're not leaving an ether, you're leaving a negative force that's pulling in on the walls of the
Negative
container.
force is just as bad
Fighting
a
to stay
thing
where they
as ether, right? That negative force doesn't describe anything any better than ether does.
The thing is, you're talking about nothing being in there, the vacuum that's acting. That's philosophically impossible. How can nothing act?
I
This
don't
is
know where
lasting
your
into
brain
absurdity.
is
This is why I get so
there,
crazy about this. The vacuum
Lemonbird,
has
no one
nothing
is
that can
saying what
act.
you're saying, Lemonbird.
So you need a philosophy where there's something in the
No, you
vacuum at least
don't.
to
You have a
act.
vacuum.
No one is
on the
saying
wall
what
of
you're
the
saying,
container.
Lemonbird.
Lemonbird has a point on that, because theoretically they say you can't even have a perfect vacuum.
No,
That
because
doesn't. Okay,
you,
listen.
you, you
Stop.
destroy the
Stop.
container that it's in.
Okay, hold
They
on.
start coming apart and sucking towards the center.
No
and
one here has ever observed a section of nothingness. That hasn't happened.
Okay,
And that's
hold
what a
on. So
vacuum needs to
okay,
be.
let's go back to what. Okay, let's go
Well
back
said.
to. Okay, let's go back to what SE just said. Okay, a perfect vacuum. Okay, in our world, there is no vacuum at all. Okay, unless we create. Okay, like so if I dig a hole, if I have evacuated dirt in a 10 by 10 square, that is an open area, but it's not a vacuum, but it is quote unquote emptier space, right? Space is just an area, right?
Vacuum has a very specific meaning.
I know, but it
I
never
was just going to say
existed.
that we have to define terms
I
here.
know, listen, I know, right? But when I evacuate a pressurized room, if I create a vacuum to evacuate, that is creating suction. That's why we get laughed at by the ballers, because they say vacuum, or the vacuum of space, doesn't have a sucking motion. Okay, so there is no vacuum in that sense. What they mean by vacuum of space is an actual, it's redundant, because a vacuum implies empty space. It's the same thing, but it doesn't imply pressure or negative pressure. It doesn't imply an evacuation of that area by a mechanism. So there, the idea of a perfect vacuum or a vacuum of space, that is simply a concept, an imagination
Well
of
said.
someone. The
Well,
imagination
they
of
try to
someone.
approach the concept by saying that there's basically nothing in space for the Earth to move against friction-wise, acting
Right.
like it is nothing to move against friction-wise, that we're just going through empty space, relatively empty space with relatively nothing inside. And
Yeah.
they're trying to act like, this vacuum can somehow exist on a certain level. So they're still trying to approach that concept as if that concept reflects reality. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's a big part of and this is where a lot of the bullshit comes from, is when you're target locked onto your theory as fact, and then you just start making up explanations, right? Like, oh, well, why doesn't it slow down? Not that it's not moving, right? Like, is it, well, maybe it's not moving. No, it's still moving. There's nothing there to slow it down. Wow, we'll just make up nothing and put it into existence.
Or the notion that something can travel forever when you push it in space. How the hell, I mean, could somebody honestly believe that? You push something and it travels forever in space. Really?
Yeah, the slightest tap. You just,
Yeah. Just
and
blow
then
on it.
It'll never stop. That's
Yeah.
And how do they defend it? They say there's nothing in space to impede it. So they're still approaching this Neoplatonic concept, which has no relation to reality.
Their
Well, they
story
throw
is that
Newton's
there's no
law at you.
medium.
They say, here, there's this smart guy, he made a law, and he says, you push something, it travels forever.
Yeah, the story is that there's no medium for the objects to rub on, and therefore causing no kind of friction. So there's basically no friction up there, is what they're saying.
Right. So you got conservation.
And how do
of
you move
momentum.
through nothing? You know, philosophical problem number 2, how do you move through nothing? That's absurd. You're moving through something if you're moving at all. Otherwise, there would be no point A to point B to move through at all if there was nothing there.
I would love to really understand how rockets will actually work in no medium. How would rockets, what would they boost on? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh yeah, Matrix. We've talked about that many times. We have some big disagreements about that.
Lemon, they came up with the idea that you're moving through time, not nothing, right?
That's a dimensional sort of occult concept. If you go to a different dimension, you're going to have a different, a way that you look at time, probably because things there are processed differently. In one unit of time, quote unquote, you're going to have 10 processes in one spiritual dimension versus our dimension where you're only going to have one. That's the only way that time, quote unquote, changes. Otherwise, you can't touch it, smell it. You can't, put a color to it. That's the only way that, quote unquote, time changes on a dimensional scale. But that's about it.
Hey, I got a question from WS in the chat. I'm going to ask it. Does the panel not agree with Newton's laws of motion?
No.
Absolutely not. Not that one, anyway. And by the way, they were superseded by quantum physics.
Yeah, that's the whole push it and it doesn't stop moving.
I have a better question. Does Newton agree with alleged Newton's laws of physics?
Can anybody show us something moving?
Doesn't he have a disclaimer around there somewhere?
For gravity specifically, he does. He wrote a letter, or whatever, basically claiming that it was stupid. Nobody that's logically using their brain would ever think that gravity is legitimate. But I don't know what he thought about all the other stuff that they stick on his name. But I mean, if they stick gravity on his name, and they've got all these other things that they're also putting on his name, and he just basically flat out says the concept of gravity is ridiculous, it's easy for me to make the jump that maybe the other things they've attributed to him are not actually something he thought was real or agreed with.
Yeah, that letter that he wrote to his buddy was essentially the 1700s way of saying you got to be a fucking idiot to believe this. Because that's essentially what it boils down to.
How could globers get past that the people that are writing the laws and the things that they believe in, these people themselves are saying, hey man, this is nonsense. Like how could a logical man get past that and be like, nope, this makes perfect sense?
Well, the thing is, that's what the atomistic philosophy demanded. It was just complying with the philosophy and saying bumping particles transfer their energy and motion by bump and collision. And so based off of that, you can derive a couple laws that appear to hold in engineering. Something transfers to something else. You got to account for all of these forces, all of these collisions. He was basically trying to be, have some integrity and carry through with the philosophy. And it looks like it works for the most part in engineering. It was just denied on philosophical grounds with relativity, because with relativity as the philosophy that says you could be moving, I could be moving, there's no preferred frame of reference. We can't have something messy like gravity implying that the earth is a preferred frame of reference. So they just denied it on philosophical grounds, not because it didn't work or not because there wasn't another philosophy at play.
Now, the one thing I will say to qualify my negative answer of no is that if we're talking about orbital mechanics, no, I don't. I would deny every single law that Newton or that's attributed to that that construct. Now, as best as I can recall, when I first got into these rethinking this arena, I remembered Newton's laws having to do with physics, right? I remember talking about billiard balls on the pool table and every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Okay. To me, that's what I remember being the basis of those principles or those laws. So an object at rest will stay at rest unless it's acted upon
on external force.
Okay, right. But from what I remember is that a billiard ball is going to stay at rest unless it gets hit by another billiard ball. Okay, that's physics. That's stuff that we can measure and look at. Or if you have a car and you have a certain sized engine, and that engine is able to move that car, that's the first principle. That car is going to stay at rest unless the engine creates a force to put it in motion. Now,
well, it's partly philosophy because you need to have something to transfer the motion. You know, you can't just have motions just pop up out of nowhere, at least by this philosophy.
Lemon.
Yeah, but we didn't Newton. We don't need Newton to tell us that.
Why are you always jump into this
from that they
philosophical
had
bullshit.
atomism with the cult of bumping particles transferring the motion. Yeah,
okay,
it's a
look,
logical
we see a rock, right, Travis? We see a rock sitting on the floor, right? We know if we don't go move it, it ain't gonna move.
Why the
we don't need a law for that.
Why the fuck has Lemon come in here and corrected me twice on things I haven't said?
No, it's the implications of what you say.
No,
you're saying one thing,
that's
which is fine,
incorrect.
but you're not carrying through the logical implications
that
of what
is
you're saying.
incorrect. Then why don't you set forth in motion an investigation and ask me questions rather than attack a straw man?
Nah, I don't know. You just seem like a full of shit, Nick. I'd rather just see what you say and derive the logical implications of what you say.
No, well, you are
please
incorrect.
continue.
You are making incorrect inferences, Lemon.
Okay. I thought that was an interesting question from WS, and my response to that would be, you know, when he starts bringing the heliocentric model into it, you know, you can apply these. We've talked about this before on Earth, and they seem to work for, you know, the most part. But the way they're defined, if you can apply them, I agree with you. But when you start defining F equals ma, now you're starting to bring the ideas of your philosophy and meshing them with empirical science. And that's where I balk.
There's some truths, Brandon, and there's some fantasies. Like, we know if something's moving, it ain't gonna move until we push it. Right? We don't need Newton for that. Now show us where if we push something anywhere here, it's gonna travel forever. I call bull on that law.
Yeah. Agreed. And then he's bringing in reference frames, which is just always like a big red warning light for me.
Which came first, mass or gravity?
Yeah, remember that conversation we had with George where he essentially admitted that, you know, F equals mass isn't required until you leave the Earth.
Why can air blow down things? It's invisible.
You don't need two terms. You don't need mass and weight until you leave the Earth because they're the same nominal value, right?
Yeah.
That's another term they made up, mass. What is mass? Somebody define mass.
How can air blow down how can air blow down a building and a tree and posts?
Isn't mass a religious term, right? You go to mass.
Mobile.
Yeah, it is.
Stuff that takes up space, basically. Sorry I was so uncharitable to you, a plain truth. I apologize.
All right, thanks.
Didn't mean to be so mean to you. Sorry about that. But mass is basically matter, and matter is that which takes up space. Space is that which is around, you know, matter. That's basically the main thing.
I put to you, mass is a magical term they made up, Lemon, so they can convince us of this thing called space.
Air, how do you see it? Do you see it take up space around you?
When you
Do
put
you
it in
see
a
its
balloon.
mass? So how do you figure air into this statement there?
Or when you put it in a balloon, assuming that the stuff coming out of your lungs is
define
air.
it, eh?
So basically,
You
they have a
still,
philosophy
that's
where
not
they have matter and
confirmation.
space. Well, basically, they have a fallacy where they assume that the matter can be accurately cataloged on a scale. Not all matter, quote unquote, does that. Air doesn't do that.
Well, apparently
And so they
not.
shift the
Notice
definition.
the rare gases and other inert gases and etc. Right? It's a lot of exceptions, eh?
What were you
So
saying? You
they
got cut off. What were you
basically
saying,
move the
Lemon?
goalpost. I was just saying they have to shift the goalpost even further by saying, okay, mass is now that which tends not to move when you move it or whatever, that which has inertia, that which it takes energy to start moving or whatever. So they kind of shift the definitions of it.
Yeah, they have different definitions for it.
Well, officially, and I can tell you officially, in scales all over, electronic ones, they don't measure mass, kilos, pounds, nothing. They measure the force as strain. They are called strain gauges, but they're basically the scales that we use in electronics. They use what are called strain gauges. They don't measure weight in any way, shape, or form. They measure stress, an amount of force exerted.
But isn't it funny? Mass is defined. When you look it up, you see a kilogram there. Then they tell
And
you something.
you have to stress to pick it up, don't you? You have to strain.
Shout out to Colin, donated $10 via Streamlabs. Thank you, Colin. He says, shout out to the panel. I will shout them out when I go back on. Thanks, Colin. Sorry, Streamlabs isn't working. The dang thing is so glitchy, it's not even funny. Thank you very much.
So the gauges for them, what we call scales, are strain gauges. But that's another vocabulary thing and articulation that, well, glossary of terms, add it or don't. I don't care.
I use scales to actually relieve my stress.
That's not my point. My point is mass has 3 different definitions. So therefore, you can't use it for anything. I prefer the term weight.
Well, even that I prefer too, because it's from the French system called avoir du poids in the French. That means to have weight.
Exactly.
So I grew up with that, and I know the system's called avoir du poids. It means to have weight, and that's what everything else is based on.
The problem I have with F
from
equals
that,
MA,
modifications, whatever, different scales.
the problem I have with F equals MA is now you've defined this force, which for objects on Earth typically presents itself as the downward force, or what we call weight, right? It is the pressure an object's, exerts downwards, in my mind. Now, I know that's a little more complicated than that because you've got upwards and whatever, but they're defining it as a result of an acceleration. So immediately they've brought gravity into it. They said, no. This force that you see that's with this object that is, what is it called? Coordinated with this object. That's not the right word. I can't remember the damn word. This force coming from this object does not belong to this object. It's not an inherent attribute of the object. It's due to this other thing. And that other thing is the thing that props up their entire model.
And they bring mass in there, bro.
Yep.
The magic word.
So this really separates the stuff that makes up something from the force that results from that thing. Why can't, and if you think about it in terms of no, that force, that downward pressure or that upward pressure is coming from that object. That solves a lot of these problems that they throw at you.
Yep, by its weight. And that's another thing they say mass is Avogadro's number. Let me see if I can get this right. 10 times 10 to the 12
It's 6.023
elemental
times 10 to the
particle.
23rd.
Listen to this crap. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they got that. They derived that based off of the way gases behave volumetrically.
Yeah, that's
so
the
they
correct
basically had a
explanation.
ratio of.
I'm sorry if I
It's
butchered
basically.
it.
How do you measure?
Basically
How do
a
you measure?
ratio.
How do you measure the weight of gases? Let's say hydrogen, helium, the lighter gases.
You're late to the party, Aaron. We already been down that road.
Well, mass has one definition of stuff that takes up space. The other definition is how much interacts with the scale. The other definition is how much takes up space. So they saw how much gas takes up, a certain amount of space at a certain volume, and basically assumed it was made out of particles. Avogadro took a volume of gas, contracted it by freezing, and got a certain ratio. And that ratio was something like, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd times the size it was before. Basically, it's a ratio of how much the mass of the volume of the gas contracts before it really doesn't start contracting anymore.
Well, on
And
the
so
right
they
hand
derived
side,
it based on that.
When you refer to Avogadro's number, it's like saying a dozen.
On the right hand side of the periodic table, right? You have the gases, and below hydrogen, number 1, right? There's an atomic weight. And so what's the reference? Where's the zero? Like, where are they starting from to get 1 point something atomic weight?
Basically, based off of how much of it can react with another volume of gas. They say that this mass of carbon reacts with a great amount of hydrogen, and the carbon is exhausted before the hydrogen. So they assume that either the carbon was bigger and had a bigger weight and more reactivity, and the hydrogen was smaller, and there was more hydrogen per unit space versus the carbon. Basically, they made a couple philosophical assumptions. Did they see these atoms? Not
No.
necessarily.
That's right. You're killing me, Lemon.
They basically did a ratio of how much unit volume of gas will react with another volume of gas, and they said it's a 1-to-2 ratio, so it must be 1 to 2 atoms. So it was basically math and ratio work and some philosophical assumptions.
Avogadro's number is equal to 6.02214076 times 10 to the 23rd. In case anybody's wondering.
Isn't everything
good
based on
science.
water, right? The weight of water is 1 or something. Everything's kinda
Hydrogen.
based off that.
Hydrogen is
Something
one.
like
I've got the periodic table up right now if anybody's interested.
When they're talking about, just to please Jimbo, vapor pressure. Or
Oh,
something,
density.
like,
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Yep, excuse me.
with density, water is
Yeah.
like 1 or some bullshit.
Yep.
So basically, with that number, like carbon is 14. 14, you can react like 14 units of hydrogen, which is 1 to 1 volume of carbon, and all of it'll, react out ratio-wise. That's basically what it is, more or less.
That's cool. That's also one of the first things we learned too, in like 4th grade science, right? They just throw that table and you got to memorize it all and all that shit.
Right.
It's because it's pretty good science, but some of the fundamental assumptions may need to be re-examined is all.
I must have had some shitty science teachers when I was a kid, because I did not give a shit. I did exactly as much as I needed to get by, and that was it.
Me too, exactly. I ended up doing like all my friends' homework. Did you ever do that? Right? You'd have your friends over, and like they'd finish theirs, but I would never finish mine. So I got like a D in science. They got an A, and like shit like that.
Well, I did a lot of my girlfriend's homework, but yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I went to school with my wife, college, and her and her friends would be like, "Oh, can you help us do this?" And then I'd end up like giving them all the answers to their paper when we were studying. They had me wrapped around their finger. It was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, interesting stuff, guys. I don't know where we're going with all this, but the next step from this laws of motion
to the moon.
Well, I wanted to point out the definition of mass. It even says it right here in physics. Mass is not the same as weight, even though mass is often determined by measuring the object's weight using a spring scale. And then, of course, on Earth, except for some edge cases that you'll be hard-pressed to actually validate, weight is exactly equal to the mass. So they just give it a different scale, a different unit. And then
there's 3 different definitions, basically: interaction with the scale, taking up space, or stuff that doesn't tend to move when you try to move it, and/or doesn't tend to stop once it starts moving. Those are
Brian,
basically the 3 definitions.
Yeah. Okay.
Brian at Balls Out Physics. What was his last name? Brian, whatever. He did a great one.
Brian Mullen.
Talking about Mullen, yeah. Mass, weight, force, acceleration. I can't remember what episode it was, but just
Probably
seeing
one of the rocket ones.
Oh, I'll have to check that
Possibly,
out
but-
again. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a while. If anybody in the audience hasn't watched Brian Mullen's old stuff, that's good stuff if you can find it.
Yeah, just start out there. I mean, it's just, it was just real easy to watch, right? And eye-opening, right? Because we know all these terms and shit, but when he puts them together in equations, normally I open a book and the equation's like 10 miles long. Like, what the fuck? Well, he shrinks it all down. Cancel this M, cancel that, cancel this, cancel that, and M equals W. Right, in the end.
Right, right. And you know, the next point that Newton goes to from F equals ma is essentially his universal law of gravitation. So once he defines that acceleration in there, then he can apply that to the entire solar system and tell you that all those lights you see up in the sky are ordered and behave the way they do because of this force, this empirical force that he measured on Earth, the apple falling, and the way he defined it.
Right.
Yep.
I can't believe nobody was even thinking or observing shit falling like before 1728. You know.
Well,
No,
no
that's not
apples
the
must have
issue.
fell.
That's not the issue. The issue, I think, as I was looking into this stuff at the beginning, trying to think through, okay, you know, like, what did they think about before Newton came along? I honestly, again, this is reading between the lines, right? Because this is not the narrative that we're given. But in my opinion, I think the story is created to counteract what we would attribute to centrifugal force, right? So before Newton, everybody understood why things fell. After Newton, the question is, why the fuck isn't it flying off into space? When it leaves the tree and the Earth is spinning, why is there no outward motion of centrifugal force? So there has to be then something that's pulling it toward. There has to be then created a counter force, which is the fictitious force known as centripetal force. So in my
Now,
opinion, that's why.
Well, hold on, let Travis
can you finish, Travis?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Definition now in French.
You're not.
Centripetal
You're
force
not.
comes from the word centripetal,
Travis.
the center of a pedal.
Travis, what happened,
Going
dude? You
out
sound
in the
different.
center of a pedal. So the centripetal or centripetal force is different from the other force you quote there, the centrifugal force. Centrifugal force is like what we do to blood. We put it in a test tube, spin it around, and the portion's separating. And we're using centrifugal force, not centripetal force.
Okay,
They are
Jim, hold on,
massively different.
Jim, okay.
Oh, hey, there's Travis.
Okay, hold on, Jim. Are you offering what you just said as a counterpoint to what I said?
Absolutely. There's
Okay.
a difference between going outside of a
Hold
ball,
on.
for example, and on the inside of it.
Okay. The explanation that I gave for Aaron's question as you know, didn't they know that things fell before? Right? My response was to express why I think they came up with that idea, and that is, we understand that when something is spinning, there is an outward motion away from the center. That is centrifugal force. Would you agree with that?
Oh, that is the centripetal force when you're on
No,
the outside of the ball.
no, that is incorrect.
Centripetal.
Okay, listen.
Around the outside of a flower ball is the outside centripetal.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Centrifugal is on the inside.
Okay.
Fugal is outward, pedal is inward.
Hold on.
Fugue like refugee.
Okay, hold on, please. Jim, listen to me very carefully. Centrifugal, a centrifuge, is something that has an outward force away from the center.
Like refugee.
No, stop.
No, centripetal force sends you off on a tangent on the outside of a merry-go-round or spinning object. That's centripetal force.
Okay, go. If you would like, I'm going to ask you nicely to go on mute for 2 minutes and look up the two terms because you're incorrect.
I've got the definition up right here. I'm trying to read through it to see. Let me see here. In Newtonian mechanics, the centrifugal force is an inertial force, blah, 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 fictitious pseudo, that appears to act on all objects when viewed in a rotating frame of reference. That's a lot of buzzwords. It is directed away from an axis which is parallel to the axes of rotation and passing through the
That's what I
coordinate
said.
system's origin.
That's what I said. It's a motion away from the center. If you want to call the center of the axis, that's fine. When you're on a merry-go-round,
It's
you swing
centrifugal
yours.
he's defining here.
That's what
Not
I said.
centripetal.
That's what I said. You corrected me and called it centripetal. You flipped it.
I'm sorry.
Right, the hand is pulling his hair out because we're balling hard right now.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we're ballers right now, big time. He's already smashed his face against the wall a couple times. Anger.
I am proud, guys.
Hey,
I
what's
do
up, Carlos?
apologize.
Centrifugal versus centripetal. I'm trying to understand what the difference is.
I'm telling you.
Fugal is
listen,
outward, pedal is inward.
Stop. Listen, I'm telling you, centripetal force is a created concept like gravity. Okay? You have to have a reason why. Okay? Everyone knows this. These guys knew. Okay? They knew, just like a second grader knows, that when you spin, a second grader who's been on a merry-go-round knows what the force pushing him outward is. He knows it. But then when you tell him that he's on the surface of the earth and the earth is spinning, he's going to be able to go, well, then why don't I experience the same thing I do on a merry-go-round? And then that's when the bullshit pseudoscience thing comes in and creates a tether that is not physical, completely metaphysical force that is pulling you toward the center. And then when you talk to these imbeciles, they'll say that when you're on
moderator,
okay, they'll say that when you're on a merry-go-round spinning, there is an invisible force pulling you to the center.
Yeah, you're right. And that's what I've got centripetal up right now, and it even mentions
Travis,
Newton
I'm with you 100%.
and Newtonian mechanics right in the first paragraph in the definition. So that aligns up exactly with what you're saying.
That's because they come from.
And the timeline is perfect.
I still want to
actually,
say
with,
you don't understand.
Ptolemy, with the heliocentric idea, right? The timeline is perfect. What Travis is saying just clicked in my head. It made sense to me. Where, oh my God, why doesn't the apple just shoot off? If now we're spinning, this is the new paradigm, right? We're on a ball flying around through space. They had to come up with something. So very interesting, Travis.
Well, I don't know if this is a point towards you or against you, but WS says, I don't say this lightly, Travis is correct. So you got that feather in your cap, Travis.
Well, I said a lot, so it's a little bit ambiguous as to what he's giving me kudos.
I think he meant everything you've said tonight, actually.
Well, then I'll take that.
Or ever.
Oh, ever.
Travis is correct.
Yeah, you might be right. He meant ever.
Whispers ether band.
WS knows the ether band exists. Okay, well, that was interesting. So what were we arguing about that for? Can't remember.
Apple falls, and before Newton, nobody observed it apparently, and so Travis came up, or just gave his explanation about.
Therefore, gravity.
Because I never thought about that. Like, okay, why even think about an apple falling? Because before Newton, apples should have fell. Something should fall. But the idea is, okay, now why Newton had to create these laws and these physics is to keep the apple going down to the ground instead of flying off on a spinning ball, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I said you have to. That's why I said you have to read between the lines. So if you leave out that part that the narrative is created to address the centrifugal problem, and if you then just say that the apple is falling because of gravity, which is then a force that is pulling it to the center of the earth, and then you're stuck to the center of the earth, Well, then that actually circumvents the whole question about centrifugal force, so that you possibly don't even ask that question. So when we're told the story about Newton, they don't address it in terms of his solving the problem of an outward force that we understand happens on a curved surface that is that has angular momentum, right? I think, again, I don't believe that the apple falling from the tree ever happened, but the narrative itself is created in such a way that it tries to eliminate. It doesn't. It's like misdirection. They don't want you thinking about the centrifugal, so they're not even going to bring it up.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. And listen to this. This term literally, it sounds like it was defined and invented perhaps by Isaac Newton.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it says Isaac Newton described it as blah, blah, blah. That's like the first thing it mentions after describing what it is. So
I should look up the etymology on it, maybe. I'll do it.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. It says it's Latin.
See how fast they get into orbits? By the very last line of that paragraph, they're into astronomy, orbits, causes.
Oh yeah. Gravity
Wonderful,
produces the centripetal force causing astronomical orbits.
Well, that's confirmed and validated by consensus science, so it's obviously a true statement there.
So then that's the whole thing with
It's over
orbital,
for us. Let's pack it in.
that's the whole thing with the orbital mechanics of what happens with the ISS, right? So if you're on a merry-go-round and there's nothing tethering you to the center axis or some other point on there, and the merry-go-round gets spun fast enough, you're going to fall off. It's going to push you out unless you can then hold on to one of the bars, right? But if if it gets spun faster and faster, then your feet are going to be parallel to the ground, and you're going to be holding on for dear life, right? But if you let go of that, your mass isn't going to hold you toward the center of that merry-go-round. You're going to fly the fuck out. Okay, but that's
let me say this: centrifugal from Edom Online, which is, I believe, a reputable etymology dictionary, say centrifugal, guys. It's an adjective, flying off or proceeding out from a center, from the 1690s. That's where the word came from, with the adjectival suffix of "al," centrifugal. Okay, and the modern Latin centrifugus is from 1687. Okay, so 3 years prior, there was they used centrifugus, and it was coined by Sir Isaac Newton in Principia, which is written in Latin. From Latin centri, the alternative combining form of centrum and center, to fugger, to flee, fugitive, centrifugal, coined by Isaac Newton in the same
Damn.
time frame.
Nice find, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to what I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by Aaron. So as we have the ISS, right? The ISS has created an outward momentum, an outward direction away from the alleged attraction that the mass of the Earth draws on it. So that whole concept is it's like if you were to if all of a sudden the ISS had a power thrust, it would then move it away from farther right. It would move it farther away from that orbital tangent that it's on, right? So right now it's kind of like if you have I'm just going to say it this way. If you've got a yo-yo and it's fully extended, and then you start to swing, you start to circulate that yo-yo, but at a slow rate, it's not going to be fully extended parallel, right? It's going to have a degree of angle to it from the fulcrum, which is your hand, right? But the reason why it's doing that is because there is a tether. There's a physical connection to a physical body, which is your hand. Now there is no physical tether on the ISS. So they have to then create this metaphysical concept of what we know happens when an object spins. We know that there's an outward motion. But if you only do a certain amount of outward motion, say 17,000 miles an hour, 17,500 miles an hour at that particular length of quote unquote centripetal tether, then that's enough right at that point so that you could always be falling, but always also being pushed away from, right? There's two different forces going on at the same time. It's not a constant fall only. Otherwise, it would fall to the ground. There's also still that outward centrifugal force that creates that tension.
So there's two forces acting on this thing, supposedly. One
Just
pulling
like-
it towards the Earth and
Yes,
one pushing
that's
it
why-
away.
Yes. Yeah, and so when you talk to these knuckleheads, I can't remember who it was.
That's
where we get net force zero.
What about motion? What about motion? You have to have the
Just
motion.
hold on real quick. Just hold on real quick. So we understand that we can measure this with a sling, or what I was saying with the yo-yo. If you swing that sling around your head, there is an outward force, and then there is also a resistance that the tether creates. Okay? The tether, so there's tension, right?
Yeah.
There's tension. Now, when you take away the tether, that ball, that rock, or when you release that rock's not going to circle around your head in the same angular degree. It's not going to keep rotating around your head in an orbit. It's going to go off in a straight line. We know that's what happens. We know that. But they had to create this invisible force to resist. That's the whole mechanics of the orbital idea. It's what you understand happens when you sling a sling, but you don't have a physical tether. So then how can you have this object staying in the same orbit? There must be some force that's counteracting the centrifugal.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense, man. Yeah, that was a good description.
Reminds me of David and Goliath. I mean, obviously, David knew something about forces.
Expand, please.
Well, he knew it at a certain release point of swinging his sling around, that whatever object he was going to try to kill the giant with was going to end up where he wanted it, or close to it, right? Based on a straight line from release,
Right. All right. Well, that was good stuff. Well, it's about 7:45. Unless anybody's got any major topic.
So I just wanted to say, so David didn't have to account for Coriolis?
No, he did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
You must not
Oh,
read
you
chapter
see-
2.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do final thoughts. Call it a night. I got some a steak sandwich my wife made for me right here next to me, just calling my name, and I've been looking at it for like half an hour. So why don't we start off with Travis? We'll just go from top to bottom. Final thoughts.
Yeah, always, Brandon. Thanks for the show, and I don't know. I think I talked a lot tonight, so I'll just let it stand as is. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. It's good stuff. Jimbo. You there, Jimbo? We'll come back. Matrix Media J. Any final thoughts? No? Mobius?
Yeah, I'd like to just say concepts aren't discovered, they're conceptualized. But yeah, good show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining the panel. Patient Zero.
Hey, Brandon, cheers for doing all, spending the time to do all this stuff for us to enjoy. But I also think there shouldn't be any final thoughts, right? It's just I was only in for a couple hours tonight, and I have a bunch of future thoughts. So now I'm gonna be stuck in my own little world for the next day until your next show Monday or some shit. And just thinking about future shit, right? I'm not. There's no final, right? So shout out everybody. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Lemon. Still there, Lemon? Nope.
Sorry, this phone's just being really non-responsive. I can't see the graphic coming up on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. Sorry, Dr. Professor Etherband Boy, I was so uncharitable to you. A lot of times when I'm talking to people, I try to work out the implications of what they said. So when I'm responding to a person, I'm not responding to what they say. I'm responding to the implications of what they say. It does cause a couple communication hiccups. I apologize for that. But going back to the ether, the implication that is readily apparent is that space has to be a substance to move through, to hold, matter, to be around matter, to even exist. And the intellectual framework that acknowledges that, obvious logical fact is the ether.
All right, thanks, Lemon. Rob Keane. He must be busy. Essie.
Yes, sir. Another good show, Brandon. Shout out to you, bro. You're really doing a good job keeping the show warm, shall we say, while Ranty's away. Shout out to Ranty. We said a lot of stuff tonight. One thing sticks out in my mind is, no matter who says it, if you push something, it will not travel forever. And I don't care if his name is Newton. That's it. Peace out, everybody.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Essie. Bob Dole.
Yeah, I got here late. You guys were talking about a vacuum or something like that. I kind of already said what I wanted to say about that. None of us have seen a vacuum. That hasn't happened. None of us have witnessed nothingness. That's not a thing that we can see or that we've ever detected or witnessed in our lives. So we don't get to just take vacuums for granted or as something that just is, because we don't ever experience nothing. That's not something that we have. Yeah, that's basically. I don't know what all else you guys were discussing, but that's what I had to say about vacuums. I do have a question if you guys want to think about this for next time, or like just not a thought. I was thinking the other day about how they claim that light works, and how it, like, particles are bouncing, and I'm just wondering what the explanation is for a mirror and how it interacts with the world around it that would allow it to interact with those particles the way that they say light works. Someone's got a good explanation for that.
Hey, Bob,
I'm
remind me
back.
of that on Monday
I'm back,
because I'm
actually.
obsessed with mirrors myself, to be honest with you.
Can I give my final thoughts? I think I missed my.
I'm back anyway. If you want my final thoughts.
Okay, Rob, go ahead, and then we'll
Okay,
go
go
to
ahead,
Jimbo.
Jimbo.
You
No,
were
go
done,
ahead,
Bob?
Jimbo.
Thanks, Bob.
Jimbo's ahead of me.
Okay, Jimbo, go ahead.
Okay, I thought it was a great show tonight, and I suggest, don't be afraid of bringing like a little bit of technical and stuff into the show, or, your ability to judge and use your own discernment on stuff, Well, what's tangible, okay, I'm there, but when it comes to the Ether Bunny and the salesmanship of it, that, Lemon and others try to push it, I'm not there, But again, tonight I'm real happy. We got a little bit into the vapor pressure and its hopefully importance, and I'll be back tomorrow or whenever, Monday, and I'll be still looking at vapor pressure, pushing it, because that's tangible and it applies to this argument and the gradients above and all that shit. So I hope it gets pushed and people start understanding the pressure, what we call atmospheric pressure, is caused by the water vapor and the temperature of that vapor in the air. That's all.
All right, thanks, Jimbo. Rob?
I'm so glad I got to follow that, because all I'm going to say is that vapor is a gas. What a great show today. glad I could be a part of it.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for being here. Yeah, my final thoughts. Good stuff, man. We had a really, I thought it was an interesting, just wandering conversation, touched on a lot of topics, looked at a lot of stuff, had some really good conversations and dialogue. It wasn't interrupted or disrupted to the very much, at least. Maybe just a minimal amount for to liven things up, but other than that, it was really good. So I appreciate all the panel members being here. Appreciate the audience. Let me just shout out Colin donated $10 tonight. Shout out to the panel. He says Godzilla donated $5. Remember Pete Shea, he was fun. And B. Lou Miller donated $6.66. I miss Rumpus and his ramblings. Rumpus will be back. Don't worry about that. But appreciate you guys. For some reason, the Streamlabs didn't kick those out. Some of them I read already. I appreciate the donations. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back. And thanks again to the chat for joining the show. Be back on Monday. And I'll see you guys then. I see Smurfer Girl Whatevs is in the audience right now, hoping there's going to be a movie night this weekend. And I did see that you posted the, what is it called? Copernicus 1? Copernicus 1. That's probably the wrong name. Anyway, with that space movie where they fake going to Mars with O.J. Simpson. So I'm going to watch that again. But anyway, thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. And I will talk to you later. Bye.